where that is.
Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 18th regular meeting of the Scarborough Town Council. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like a midget. Roll call, please.
Councillor Benedict?
Here.
Councillor Holbrook?
Here.
Councillor Sullivan?
Here.
Councillor Rancourt?
Here.
Councillor DeAndre?
Here.
Council Vice Chair Roy?
Here. Before we start with the general comment, we have a couple of students, at least I see two, students here from Mr. Coffin's civics class, and to do justice to all the others, we might ask that you go up to the podium and give us your name. And
Did you notice that stare down?
I know, they stared me right down. This way, you're caught on film, they know you were here. Either one, either one.
Hi, I'm Sean Arsenault.
Hi, I'm Zach Corbin.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 11th grade.
Great, thank you. That's it, no others? Okay, item 4 is general public comment time. If you have comments to make about items that may not be on the agenda, or comments that you'd like to make about things that are on the agenda, we give you 3 minutes to do that, if you just state your name and your address. We'll go from there.
Hello, my name's Rebecca Byers, and I reside at 16 Kamek Road. And I'm here tonight to express my opposition to the siting of the Wegman Corporation's proposed 81-unit elderly housing complex on the Black Point Road at Oak Hill. My concerns are the same ones I expressed to the Appeals Board and the Planning Board: increased traffic and an additional curb cut at an already congested intersection, and the environmental impact of building in a forested wetland with such a large structure and parking lot on a piece of land that slopes dramatically down toward my home and my neighbors' homes on the Eastern Road, including Stratton Woods 1, Oak Hills Condominium Complex, and Cedarbrook Condominium Complex, and ultimately the Scarborough Marsh. I speak for myself and as a member of Friends of Oak Hill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Elizabeth Peoples. I reside at 152 Spurwink Road. I've been asked on behalf of the Citizens for a Green Scarborough to speak on concerns that they have regarding actions taken by town council and town officials over the last 7 months, which led to the order number 12-53, which is on the agenda for tonight, that repeals the organic pest management policy that was adopted in September of 2011. The difference between an integrated and an organic policy is that an organic, you do an organic approach. Potential toxic chemicals are used only in the case of an emergency. An integrated approach combines the use of both organics and synthetics without a preference over either one. September 21st, the organic policy was voted 4-1. It was approved and implemented at that time. Before that happened, though, the Ordinance Committee spent over a year collecting testimony, resource material from landscape professionals, medical experts, toxicologists, town officials, staff, etc. The evidence included the cost effectiveness, its feasibility, other towns having successfully implemented such a policy, and the harm caused by such chemicals. The public process, public comments on both sides, this was fully vetted and approved. It wasn't until 6 months later, in March of this year, without the public knowing anything and having no knowledge of it, a councilor who was the dissent voter in the September voting asked a town official to draft a revised policy to repeal the organic policy. When the Citizens for Green Scarborough learned of this, they talked to the town council members, and it was removed from the agenda. They were appreciative of that. They also agreed to work with town officials, cooperate in trying to implement the organic policy, specifically 2 people, while they were drafting the bid proposals to implement that organic policy, which was in effect. They had no idea that secretly they were town officials, again, redrafting another revised integrated pest policy. We went from a public forum to behind closed doors. There was special interest and conflict of interest, as well as actions beyond the scope of authority that lead us to this concern. The counselor who is the dissenter is a landscaper. He or someone in his family received $40,000 for landscaping town property, and that money came from the town. There was no disclosure of this. There was no review to determine whether he should have been removed from the vote at that time, or whether it is appropriate that he be the originator of those 2 revised policies. That's not the only issue here.
Time.
Okay.
Expended your 3.
Can I offer my time to her?
You may.
Thank you. Personal opinions and special interests were based on what we've found by reading papers and talking to some of the officials. Organic policies don't work. Chemicals are not harmful. It's too costly. There's been no documentation of any of this, nothing presented to the town council before they review this revised policy. It goes directly against all the documentation that was presented at that public meeting in September. Procedurally, that September vote was the final vote. Under the town rules, a policy or any petition that's brought to final vote may not be presented for reconsideration for 1 year. That's to allow something that's been voted in the opportunity to see if it works. If, on the reverse, people were to do this all the time, we'd be going back and forth at every town council meeting. Let's change it, let's not, let's change it, and anybody could bring that. It's beyond the scope of authority for town officials to tell us that, yes, the organic policy is still in place, still effective, but we're trying to sidestep it. We anticipate in drafting our bid proposals, and that there's going to be some revision, and with that, I'm going to draft this proposal based on pure speculation. All the time that the citizens were led to believe that the organic policy would be worked on and continued to be adopted, council and town officials were again acting to remove it. The advisory committee that was to be put into place under the September organic policy has not happened. It's on the agenda tonight for the first vote after 7 months to ask that 7 people be put on that committee. At the end of tonight's agenda, we have the revised policy, which supersedes and repeals that September policy. It also provides for an advisory committee under a different name with different terms, and in fact, the 7 people that would be on the advisory committee that you're going to vote on, I think it's the second item on the agenda.
Time.
At the end of tonight's meeting, that advisory committee under the revised policy is 5 people. 2 people were removed from that committee, and those 2 people were residents with personal knowledge of organics. None of the revised policies, that this one especially before you, followed any proper procedure and rules as defined by the town rules and law. There's been no transparency, no public forum, and here we are again, no documents.
Can you summarize, please, because you're over the 3 minutes?
When town officials' actions go directly against the majority and citizens for special interests of a few and ignore due process and procedure as outlined in our town ordinances and charter, it's a serious concern. Even discretionary powers do not permit violations. You may not like it, but it does not give you the right to change without a public process. We're asking that you do that. The citizens have asked you to do what's right, address the conflicts of interest and violations of these town laws in a public forum, remove that revised policy off the agenda tonight, and implement the organic policy that was in place through the public process. Also, specifically accept a bid that's consistent with that policy. I thank you.
Thank you. I would remind folks that the period for general comment is 30 minutes, so at the front of the meeting, and if we need more time than that, I will schedule it at the end of the meeting so that we can be on with the business of the council.
I'll be quick.
Thank you.
Mark Follinsby, 33 Arborview Lane, Scarborough. Unlike the last time I stood here and addressed the council in March, expressing gratitude, I'm here today to express disappointment to see yet another iteration of the proposed pesticide policy up for consideration and vote. I'm disappointed that the opinion and will of one individual is being put ahead of the will of the citizens. Disappointed that a quick and closed approach is being used to circumvent policy that was established after a year-long inclusive process. Is this good governance? I have concerns that misinformation has been and is being provided to town councilors and officials concerning cost and the effectiveness of the organic approach. This wrong information is in direct conflict with the evidence that was presented at the September 2011 Town Council meeting, as well as to the Ordinance Committee during that year-long process. Page 10 of the recent Scarborough Leader, April 13 edition, includes a statement by a town official concerning increases in the community services budget by more than $11,000 for landscaping and turf management. The increase was attributed to the change to using the organic process as established in that September 2011 policy. When I questioned how this could be known, when the bids are not available until this coming Friday, 2 days from now, April 20th, I was told that sometimes budgets have to be made even when information is lacking. Without those bids, one cannot accurately estimate the cost for turf maintenance. For a town official to make statements of cost increases without the appropriate caveats or disclaimers is very misleading. And why is it that the bids aren't available until April 20th? I believe it's because of delays to seat the Pest Management Advisory Committee. Had that committee been convened in January or February, there would have been ample time for bidding and for evaluation of those bids to accurately inform budget discussions. Finally, during the Ordinance Committee workshop last year, the current vendor stated that Integrated Pest Management, otherwise known as IPM, was being used for the management of Scarborough turf fields. However, when asked for an accounting of the products used in 2010, at that time, the previous year, the information provided showed that only synthetic herbicides were being applied. None of the less toxic approaches were used. This is the basis for my concern with the proposed policy using IPM rather than the organic approach. Using IPM in Scarborough's policy may result in reverting to the former practice of using only chemicals as our first and only option. I urge all of you to vote in favor of protecting public health and vote against this IPM policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sue Foley Ferguson, 331 Black Point Road. I'm going to take both opportunities to speak on this subject. I was asked to speak on it. Having served the council I have 3 minutes right now. Having served the council for 6 years, on the town council for 6 years, I'm very well aware of the policies and procedures of the council and how they are guidelines. However, they're put there as guidelines for the public so that there is a public process. The folks in the Scarborough Citizens Group spent over 1 year, I want you guys to just really think about that, in the Ordinance Committee amongst themselves providing information. And what I read in the paper was a town councilor saying that he didn't get enough information. There wasn't enough information provided. I'll provide some more tonight. There was so much information, it was unbelievable. However, what's happening now behind closed doors is really, it really is a problem. Now, I understand that there is an attorney opinion on one side saying that you can follow the rules however you want, and there's an attorney opinion, actually 3 attorneys on the other side, that say the complete opposite. That's like science. Science is also debatable. just like law is debatable. But what is right is you're elected to represent the people, and if you want to get good volunteers, people who, I'm going to blow his horn, that guy right there, he's a PhD toxicologist, okay? Maybe you guys don't know that. If you want to get good people to spend time on your committees and really work to better this community, then you need to take their work and their time and respect it, and not just because one individual is concerned about a policy that they didn't win the vote on. That's what I'll say right now, and I'll tell you more about the specifics of pesticides later. Thank you.
Hi there, Lisa Boxer, 26 Stony Creek Road. And like any educated, informed, aware parent, when given the choice between exposing my child to a toxic chemical or a safer alternative, I choose the safer alternative, especially when the toxic chemical is designed, engineered, scientifically engineered to kill something. I'm also here because, and Councilor Sullivan, I don't know you, but it...
Point of order.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're not
Sorry
addressing
about that.
individuals. Thanks.
I'm really disappointed that there appears to be a blatant conflict of interest here. And I'm baffled because even the most conventional sprayers of herbicides and pesticides are moving forward toward organics. I saw a truck the other day, Atlantic Exterminators now have Atlantic Green Solutions, and their slogan is "Don't panic, it's organic." Scott's now has an organic line. True Green ChemLawn dropped the chem from its name because apparently it knows that consumers really want organic. So why would we as a town be going backwards? I just ask that you protect the children and the pets and the families of this town who use the parks and the ball fields and the athletic fields to play and walk, and I ask that you protect the integrity of the process. I think both are equally important, and this just doesn't pass the smell test. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Mutri. I live at 8 Arborview Lane. I am very aware of the use of pesticides, which is a word that was given to diagnose all herbicides, insecticides, fungicides. And I'd like to say that I sell these products. I also sell organic products, 100% organic products. And I would like to say that the bottom line to this is the state of Maine makes the rules. They register products. They only register products that are safe for the environment.
Please keep your attention on the council.
I'm sorry. They only register products that are safe for the environment and safe around human beings. So let's just put it that way. The other thing is, I have been in the lawn care business as far as wholesaling for 14 years now. I am educated every year. I go through schooling, classes, and such. I'm around chemicals all day long. I do not have breathing problems, nor do I have any type of cancer, nor am I sick. These herbicides, fungicides, and insecticides are used by licensed by the state of Maine technicians. Again, let me reinforce this. The state of Maine says that these products are safe to be used in the manner which they're meant to be, not in the manner of let me overextend. We can't stop that. We can only educate people. Now, I am for a symbiotic relationship which is organic and synthetic, because there are actual studies and cases and proven that there are organic insecticides that do not work past the Mississippi in the Northeast. They don't, such as milky spore, which everybody seems to work. It is proven, scientifically proven, it does not work. And let's just say this. Last year, when you passed your amendment on the pesticide ban, 36 hours later, there was a problem at one of our fields down on Tenny Lane, Wiley Field, where there was grub infestation. And what did they use to take care of it? An insecticide, 36 hours after the ordinance passed. And why did they use that insecticide? Because it is the only product that actually works to take care of grubs, which turn into Japanese beetles, European chafers, and Asiatic beetles. These beetles are harmful to our flowers, our trees, our grass. So I say there's a symbiotic relationship between the two when it's used properly. And one more thing. Licensed technicians should be the ones that are be applying to the town properties in Scarborough, not non-licensed people, because they are licensed by the state. They have to take tests. They have to go to school. They have to keep up with education on both organics and synthetics. Again, there is a great relationship between the two. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 8 more minutes of time.
Nanette has yielded her 3 minutes to me, please.
Play that
Okay.
game, huh? Not really.
Hi, Eddie Wooden, resident 34 Clearwater Drive. Thanks for the opportunity to speak one more time. This is, I think, my 9th time regarding this issue. It's very disappointing to me to see how this process has run. 2 years in the process, Councilor DeAndrea drafts a lot of information, important information. You know, and I always thought in America the majority ruled and there was a vote of 4-1. And to see a policy overturned by one dissenting vote just seems wrong to me. And I don't like what I've heard that's gone on behind the scenes. For example, we were never told that there was going to be a redraft of the policy. It was going to be on a Wednesday agenda, and we found out, I think, that Thursday or Friday. That's dishonest. We're the citizens. We're paying the taxes. We should know. There was no public vetting. There was no opportunity for the public. And this was a backdoor thing that was going to preclude our involvement. And when we finally had a copy of the changes, probably 70% of the entire policy was lined out. And yet, here was this thing happening 3 or 4 days later. And now there's another version, fortunately. It's more sensible. We still, I'm part of Citizens for Green. I don't agree with it. But I appreciate the fact, I think Manager Tom Hall has tried to mediate and find some common ground. We appreciate that. But I have no stake in this in terms of, I don't earn my living. I have better things to do. I run a company. My charitable work is significant. My time is important to me. The tens of hours we have. We're here for the benefit of the well-being of the people of Scarborough and the living organisms. Before we were involved, this never went out to bid, hadn't been out to bid. It is out to bid now. There was no notification of sprayings and applications. There now are signs, and that whole list goes on. But we're in this for the long run, and we're committed for a number of reasons. And we want to see healthy athletic fields, Roundup being used on an infield. You know, and the landscapers argued that salt and vinegar is as toxic as Roundup. Well, would you rather have a tablespoon of Roundup or a tablespoon of salt and vinegar? It's just, this whole scientific thing is all over the place, but the bottom line is doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ivor Carlson. I live at 64 Ocean Avenue. I serve the town on the Community Service and Recreation Advisory Committee, as well as on the Conservation Committee. And if it's voted in tonight, I'll also be on the Pest Management Advisory Committee. There's 3 items I'd like to briefly address, and I'll do them in order on the agenda. 1251. where basically if that's enacted tonight, it will remove 2 parking spots along Bayview at Higgins Beach. I'd request that you consider this as a summer adjustment. I'm not here to argue to do anything differently in the summer, but in the winter, if you could keep those 2 spots in some way, I would suggest that maybe the drop-off zone does not need to be in effect all winter long. It's not used as a drop-off zone in the winter, and maybe the sign could be removed in the winter and people could park there, and that would gain those 2 to 4 spots back without without a concern. Next item, 1252, which is expansion of the parking lot. Commend the town for expanding that parking lot. I would recommend that the council votes to allow the town manager to expand that lot. By the expansion, it will bring it in just shy of what that lot used to hold when it was run privately and owned privately. The second part of that amendment, to build the sidewalk, I would move that $24,000 down to the pest management item. There's been a cost concern that organics will increase the cost. I think we'd be better served to remove pesticides from playing fields where there's kids and not have a sidewalk along Bayview. And considering that money is kind of come out of the community services budget, I would consider, if you could, to move it down there to help with any cost override. And I would recommend that that policy not change, that it be given time to see if it works, because I look forward to serving on that advisory committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivor.
My name is David Hewitt. I live at 62 Burnham Road, and I'd like to address order number 1253. I'm curious if the chair of the council could answer a question if any of its members are involved in selling any of the chemicals or distributing any of the chemicals that are proposed to be used. Is there any knowledge of that?
It's not usually our practice to answer those kinds of questions, but unless somebody would like to speak up,
Nobody distributes these chemicals or uses them?
No.
Okay. So there is no conflict of interest within its board members in voting on this order?
I'll address that at the proper time.
yeah, that will be addressed at its proper time in the meeting,
When is that proper time?
right prior to that order.
And will the public have access to what goes on in that meeting?
It will be right here.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
That
welcome.
was my only question.
Any other? Okay, we have about 1 minute left, and I was asked to read a comment into the record from Janice Parente, and it's regarding the proposed removal of 2 parking spots on Bayview. She states that the proposal to remove 2 parking spots on Bayview is being driven by summertime traffic and safety concerns. I would like to remind the council that there are and always have been 2 very distinct seasons at Higgins Beach. There is a summer and a winter season. Traffic and safety issues that concern some residents in the summer season should not translate to parking changes in the winter when there's no justification for such in the engineers or the town manager's report, nor were there any winter issues at all that were cited in the police report from the fall of 2011. Thank you for considering this very important point during the parking discussion. And then I have 6 emails in regard to the integrated pest management policy, and all of those are speaking in favor of maintaining the current policy. We've got time for one more.
My name's Al Lappin. I reside at 3 Riverwoods Drive in Scarborough. I, too, was at all these meetings that we had. It was kind of a surprise to us that a group of people tried to change all the policies that the town of Scarborough has been using for years. I have nothing against organics. I think organics are great when they're proven. basically using IPM and BMPs are basically a tool for these people to use, myself included. It's like telling a guy to go install a window and not giving him a hammer or a screw gun. You need to have certain tools to get certain things done. The public bashing of one town councilor is kind of upsetting to me. I don't think it's just him. I believe it's a lot of other people in this town that have concerns about going strictly organic, myself included. I take care of a lot of the fields over the years in this town. I've rebuilt a lot of these fields. I've donated a lot of my time and energies to rebuilding these fields. Right now, currently in the town of Scarborough, I have had 15 calls in the past week alone of grub damage on people's lawns. I know that is nothing of concern to the town right now because we're talking about parks, schools, municipalities. It's a huge issue in this town right now. That's only for 1 week, 15 phone calls. Going strictly organic is not going to take care of this problem in the next year or two. It's going to take a matter of 3 to 5 years if it works. I went to a meeting last week in Cape Elizabeth, which the State Pesticide Board, the Maine Agriculturals, and what have you, they came out with a program for all of your schools, best management practices for athletic fields and school grounds. I think that's something that this town should be following. It covers everything that we tried to present to you guys. I brought experts into these meetings. I think it was 4 or 5 meetings in a row, and it pretty much fell on deaf ears. These people are paid to know what this is talking about. This is a program to follow IPM, Integrated Pest Management, and best management practices. It's there. That's what we should use, and we should not be going forward and trying to reinvent the wheel. There are colleges out there who are trying to work with this stuff. There are state agencies working with this stuff, and until it is totally proven, I don't think Scarborough should be jumping the gun and implementing something that hasn't been fully proven yet. That's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll close the general public comment section, and certainly there will be opportunity prior to any of the items before a motion is made by the council to have further comment. Minutes of the April 4th regular meeting and the April 12th special meeting of the town council. Pleasure of the council.
Move approval.
There a second?
Second.
Any errors, omissions, or corrections in those? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda. I would like to offer one adjustment to the agenda based on the fact that item 1253, if it passes, would change the composition of the advisory committee for the pesticide management, and I would like a motion to move that to the end of the meeting, just based on that factor.
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion about that? Councilor Raincourt?
How about moving item 1253 to the front of the agenda?
Okay, we have,
There's a motion you need to
Okay.
discuss.
Motion on the floor.
okay, the motion's on the floor to move the adjustment, move the appointments to the end of the meeting. All those in favor of that?
I'm gonna lose it.
Opposed? It was a good suggestion, though. I hadn't
Thanks.
thought of that. Thank you. I think the other items will go rather quickly. There are items to be signed, treasurer's warrants. I'll take care of those at some point during the meeting. New business. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Public hearing first.
Order number 12-46, 7 p.m. public hearing and action on the new request for a massage therapist license from Pamela J. Seavey, doing business at Magic Bridges, located at 605 U.S. Route 1.
Any public comment on this? Motion from the council?
Move approval of 12-46.
Second.
Second.
Any comments?
Welcome.
Just welcome Maggot Bridges. 605 Route 1. All those in favor? Thank you.
Order number 12-48, first reading and refer to the Planning Board the proposed amendment to the Town of Scarborough official zoning map to designate a portion of 162 Black Point Road from the R2 zone to TVC3 Town and Village Center.
Mr. Frank will introduce that matter to the council.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the council. My name is Sean Frank. I'm an engineer with Sebago Technics. I will be brief. I'm here on behalf of Joe and Eric Thomason, and Joe is with me tonight. Recently, this council acted to revise some of the zoning in this neighborhood at the intersection of Highland Avenue, Highland Road, and Black Point Road. And part of this property was rezoned at that point to TVC3, with the understanding, at least from the applicant's standpoint, that that would allow them to build one additional house there, one more single-family residential home. Unfortunately, the zoning doesn't allow the density from the TVC3 to be relocated to the R2. As such, we would just request that that zone be amended to include the whole lot. Again, the whole purpose of this is to allow the construction of one more single-family home on the property. We have been in front of the Long Range Planning Commission. They are in support of this. We would ask the council to please forward it to the planning board, where we can make the presentation to them and hopefully be back to you for a change in the zone. Thank you very much.
Any questions from the council for Mr. Frank?
Dan Bacon is here too, in the event there are questions for him.
And as he did say, it did come before the Long Range Planning Committee. It's a new function for the Long Range Planning Committee to review similar requests as this, and the Long Range Planning Committee was comfortable with that change. Any other questions of Mr. Bacon and Mr. Frank? Councilor Rancor?
No, I just want to make sure the red lines are the TVC3 or the yellow lines?
The red lines are the TVC3 zone currently. The
And that
yellow
would be the new
would
zone?
be the new zone.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Frank.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Order number 12-49, first reading and waive the second reading to approve the expenditure of $228,750 from the Land Acquisition Reserve Fund for the purpose of purchasing Warren Woods located at 371 Payne Road as recommended by the Parks and Conservation Land Board, and authorize the town manager, after review of documents by the town attorney, to execute such documents as are necessary to protect the town's interests and ensure the preservation of the property for agricultural use.
With that, Sue Foley Ferguson is here, and she's on that Land Acquisition Committee.
The Parks and Conservation, I'm the chair of the Parks and Conservation Land Board. And the council has before them a letter of recommendation from the Land Board. The Land Board has evaluated this parcel. It's the Harvey Warren parcel. It sits in the middle of town. It's 161.5 acres, and it's a great piece of property. It's a black bog, or black spruce bog. It has cranberries on there if you take a walk on it. There's trails and possibility of both active and passive recreation. From a conservation standpoint, because it's a large parcel, it has the ability to hold a lot of different species of plants and animals. And from a recreation standpoint, it sits in the middle of town and possibly can connect. It's exciting because most of our conservation land is either way, way, way out west or north, or at the coast, whereas this parcel is right off of Payne Road. It's also abuts across the river from the Nunsuch two parcels that we had purchased, or we had worked on the Higgins Beach project last year. Just for a little bit of background history, the Parks and Conservation Land Board has a specific process by which we evaluate parcels, and it's a, actually I have my, I think there's only one new counselor here everybody else probably knows, but there's a set process by which we go through. We try to be very objective, and so that we rate these parcels according to their conservation values or recreation values to the town, and then we compare them to other parcels to see whether we're going to get a big bang for our buck. In this particular case, the price is higher because grants are nowhere to be found in this economy. Land for Maine's future is gone and all of that kind of thing. But the parcel is not expensive. It's actually it's a great parcel, and it's one that the Land Trust, and I don't know if the Land Trust is represented here, but the Land Trust has been working with the Warrens for a long time. And I know the manager's been speaking with the Land Trust as well about possibilities for putting small parking lot and using it for recreation activities such as cross-country running for the schools, or maybe even ball fields eventually. But most of it will have to be, because it's wet and it is a bog, will have to be protected. That's the one recommendation from the Parks and Conservation Land Board, that the development rights on at least the conservation piece be extinguished by an easement overlay, which usually it is. I sent the council the history of the parcels that have already been purchased. We had $5 million in the land bond funds from 3 separate referendums, and I think there's about $2 million or so left. And this is a $228,750 request. If you have any questions, I might be able to answer them.
Just one comment. The parcel does connect to town-owned land in some way, or close to. When Steve Ross sold his property,
yeah, there is
Sawyer Road, there is a right-of-way connection that he wrote into the agreement for sale of that property, so that there would be a fairly close connection for the school athletic fields and perhaps, future track or things. I think that's what Steve was probably thinking.
Right, knowing Steve.
And the balance right now is $2,661,475. Questions? Counselor Dandridge?
Yeah, maybe that answered my question. My question is, how would we access this property? I'm looking at the map, and it appears like we would access it through Payne Road, but I'm not.
Sawyer Road, I think.
But I'm not aware, I can't see where on Sawyer Road that access might be.
Well, I know the Land Trust had spoken about it, and I talked to Jeremy about it, and there is a right-of-way, but it's not clear whether that right-of-way is going to be a public right-of-way or not. Sometimes right-of-ways and land acquisition projects are only for maintenance. We're hoping that Steve, because he was a track coach for so many years, thought about having public access from there. But maybe it is a right-of-way over across somebody's property, so you might not be able to put a parking lot there, but you may be able to walk through there. So that's unclear, and that needs to be sort of settled. And even the width of that wasn't very clear, did Jeremy talk with the manager about that?
Yeah. I think primary access, my impression would be gained off Payne Road. That's the best access, certainly for a small trailhead facility, parking lot, if you will.
Thank you.
Other questions, Counselor Holbrook?
You had mentioned that there was potential for active recreation, but it's not something that's checked off. I was just wondering why. Do you have a list of possible abilities for the parcels?
The first, I think what you're looking at is the first initial evaluation. We do a detailed evaluation that I did not give you. It's probably about 4 or 5 pages. That's one that the applicant puts together. And it's most likely that their thoughts are they want to protect the land from development. But development, and is a ball field development, or is it? And our land bond funds have said that we can use it for active and passive recreation. But whether or not the owner wants you to is another whole reason. And whether it's appropriate or not, like I said, a lot of it is wetland bogs, so you're not going to want to do that. But the parcels that are closest to Payne Road are upland. And there is an opportunity there. You'd have to do a wetland analysis to figure out what could go there and how much it would cost to do it. So I guess my answer to that is that the applicant filled that out.
Okay.
Typically, our board will fill that out. In this particular case, we did not.
Do you have an idea as far as how much of this property could be used for recreation, like acreage-wise? How much would be conservation and how much would be recreation?
Hold on one second, I do have my evaluation form.
Good question, because that was also much first.
As she's collecting the material, I would direct your attention to the map that was attached. It has a photograph. You can see portions of the property closest to Payne Road are cleared, and based on my understanding of the property, having walked it and seen it, although it does require a full wetlands delineation, it would be in those cleared areas, being upland and obviously closest to Payne Road, where those sorts of active field opportunities would be.
Might make a suggestion that instead of waiving second reading, that perhaps we have a second reading when maybe a few more of those details have been kinked out to have a better idea of what can be used where. I'm certainly not opposed to undertaking this and using some of the land bond money, but it'd be nice to know what we can use and where and how much of it.
That's certainly something we need to focus on. I'm not sure if we can even know that in the next 2 weeks, frankly. I'm the one that kind of pushed forward the notion that perpetuity is for a long time. In 50 years or 100 years from now, the town may find itself with a need to develop ball fields. And I just would hate to pigeonhole ourselves today with what covenants we may put on the land if there's some land that could have some value there. I think because of the natural topography in the wetlands, the vast majority of the property is not suitable for development of any sort. As a practical matter, I understand closing will happen sometime later this fall, frankly, so there's many months during which time there'll be fundraising that's underway with the goal of, at the end of summer, I thought I saw Jeremy here, there he is. And during those intervening months, I do expect to have further discussions about exactly those things. Who will hold the fee interest of the land, who will hold the conservation easement, so on and so forth. So those have to be addressed. I'm just not sure if I'll have those answers even in 2 weeks' time. It will have to come back to council ultimately for you to accept either the conservation easement, if that's the route we go, or the fee interest in the property. So there'll be another action of the council at some later date.
If there was a conservation easement, it wouldn't have to go over the entire parcel.
Right.
It could go over as much or as little as you wanted it to, and that would be a partnership between the town and the land trust. And I just looked through our form, and we don't have actual acreage on what would be upland versus, we do have some, but it exceeded all categories, both in upland and in wetland. So I can't, in other words, it got maximum points for both. So there's potential, but it's, even at this price, it's valuable for pure conservation purposes. And really, anything else would be, it has to work through the land trust. I'll let Jeremy speak to it, I guess.
I have just a point of clarification. So tonight only designates that we're willing to purchase it. Tonight doesn't set us to having to do,
It really allows the land
sign.
trust the certainty that the town is going to put in this amount, and it really lets them go about the business of raising the rest of the money.
Okay. And we'll have a decision later at another council meeting about.
That's right, and I think Jeremy's going to speak to it, but the suggestion I put forward was that perhaps the town own the underlying fee interest of the entire 161 acres. The land trust, in turn, would hold a conservation easement on the vast majority, and I don't know exactly what that acreage is, but 155 or 60 acres of it would be subject to a conservation easement, but the town would then have the ability to develop it as it wished within some confines that would be discussed.
Yep, that's right. I'm Jeremy Winterstein. I'm a director of the Scarborough Land Trust, and I agree with Tom. I mean, with the way we would do this is we work in partnership with Tom Hall and with the council to come up with the best partnership strategy to protect the property. And we would be also doing a fundraising campaign to raise at least $75,000 of private money to match land bond funds that would potentially come into the project as well. And I think that in terms of ball fields, the best site is most likely by the Payne Road frontage area. We would do some wetlands analysis, most likely with the town and community services, to figure out what sites are most appropriate for ball fields, if that's what the council and land trust and everybody is in favor for. But overall, we're really excited for this project. We think it's a fantastic property. We've been working with the Warren family for a long time on it, probably 3 years now. And the Warrens have a history with the land trust, and so we're just thrilled to have this opportunity to protect 161 acres in town, right in that location as well.
Other questions?
Just on the point of active fields, we have no immediate interest or desire to do this. I just wanted to make sure that future generations had that option available should the need arise.
And as Tom said, the area by Payne Road, as you can see on the photograph there, I think that was years ago a roughed out area for a golf course.
Yes.
So some areas have been cleared already.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council? All those in favor? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Apologize.
Oops. My name's Dave Green. I live at 135 Beach Ridge Road. Do not get me wrong. I've known the Warrens most of my life. I wish them well with this piece of property. Harvey has tried to do a lot of stuff with this piece of property through the years, as we're all aware. And we've all driven by it. And it certainly is a wet piece of property. When you start talking about black spruce growth, I think you're going to have some issues. And unfortunately, if I was sitting there on the council with the information that's been presented tonight, I would not go along with this until somebody gives me some better numbers, okay? How much of it's wet? Can you even get a ball field in there? I don't think anybody's answered these questions. Yes, there's some space. There's some greens that were created 20 years ago. There's some open space there. A lot of it is very wet. And my other question to you is, how does this fit into our zoning that's there? I know if you buy open space, it doesn't really fit. But we got Higas Parkway right down the street, and we've got the Payne Road corridor to think about. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't take this piece of property along with the land trust. That's fine. But I think we ought to know what we're going to buy and how much we're going to get that's usable land, what the access is, and I don't think a good job has been done tonight to present that to you for you to make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. We will re-vote on it. Anybody else would like to make a comment? All right, all those in favor? Folks.
Order number 12-50, first reading and schedule a public hearing, and second reading on the proposed amendment to Chapter 601, the Traffic Ordinance, Section 29, Parking Restrictions.
Let me get organized here. If I would be permitted to, I'd like to speak to the next three orders. They're all interrelated, if I could. And forgive me, I provided some comments to council over the weekend, and you must have been scratching your head. I was referring to a matrix that I failed to attach. I'm going to distribute it this evening. But I did provide the substance on which this matrix was based. And essentially what's before you this evening is a quick snapshot, one-page snapshot that attempts to, and I think does, encapsulate the original recommendations put forward by the traffic consultant hired by the Higgins Beach Association, then the town's traffic consultant recommendations to those comments and some further thoughts, and then finally a column that talks about what action might be considered for each of these. And essentially the next three orders represent those different council actions that kind of fall out of this process, if you will. On the flip side of what I just handed to you are some further thoughts and comments received just today from the Higgins Beach Association to that column called Action. As you'll note, a number of them don't require council action. They're within staff scope, and there are a number of the suggestions from the Higgins Beach Association are in that category, and I certainly intend to meet with them and discuss all of those matters before we move forward. There's no sense in doing something that either is a waste of money or ineffectual. So with that, the first order before you, again, attempts to address the first suggestion, which is to install a no-stopping standing sign on the east side of Bayview between Ocean and Pearl Street. It's a simple amendment to the parking ordinance. There has been a suggestion from the police chief that that language may not be terribly clear and understood by the general public, and perhaps an amendment will be offered for your consideration to clarify that point.
Any public comments on Order 1250?
Is this going to cover the parking spaces, the
Yes.
elimination of parking spaces as well?
Talking about the traffic, the first one is parking or, just a sign, okay? Based on the police chief's input today, is any other comments from public on this one? I would like to offer an amendment to, once we get a motion on the floor, so if we could have a motion.
Approval, 12-50.
Second.
And I would offer an amendment that it read, the sign read, rather than no stopping standing, that the sign read no parking, stopping, idling. Because there was some concern by the residents there that people might get confused if they were pedestrian and they couldn't stand there. So the chief...
Particularly if we build a sidewalk, encourage them.
If we have a sidewalk. So that's my amendment. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Discussion on the order,
The amendment.
on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. Now, the main motion as amended.
I get to vote. Oh, opposed. You didn't ask for opposed.
Opposed. Oh, I'm sorry. Thought you saw your hand. Okay. And now the main motion as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm in favor. I'm opposed. I'm just up and down here a little bit.
Okay.
I'll be opposed.
Thank you.
Order number 12-51, act on the request to remove one existing parking space at Morning Street and to move the first handicap parking space on Bayview Avenue near Ashton, 20 feet from the crosswalk, resulting in a reduction of 2 parking spaces.
If I could just introduce these are both recommendations that came from the town's traffic consultant. The Higgins Beach Association's consultant had similar but somewhat different recommendations in terms of ensuring adequate sight distance being respected. The net effect of this proposal would be to reduce the available designated on-street parking by 2 spaces. And as has been kind of the hallmark and the standard throughout this, from a design point of view, we've tried to bring forward things that make engineering sense and public safety sense, and I personally would put these recommendations in that category. It's unfortunate we're losing 2 spaces, but I think there are valid engineering reasons that these recommendations come before you.
Okay, any comments from the public, please?
Hi, Sue Foley-Ferguson, 331 Black Point Road. I brought with me today the attachment that I had given last year regarding how much work has been done at Higgins Beach compared to other communities in this town, and how much money has been spent, public dollars. Since 1998, I had documented them, and I gave it to the council last time, so I only made one for the clerk and for the new council.
Thank you.
so all of you have seen that last year. I also brought this big pile of stuff here because this represents the years that I spent working on Higgins Beach. I sat for 3 years on the Saco Bay Management Committee, and on the Town Council, I was 6 years on the Ordinance Committee. And you'll see documented in there how much work we did. Since I got off in 2002, we've already spent $3 million in Higgins Beach. I'm bringing this all to your attention because Higgins Beach is a public beach, and yet we're losing parking spots every year. And I know we got the parking a lot, but guess what? We lost spots there too. We had more spots when it was privately owned than we do now that we're going to refinish it or improve it. So we're losing spots every year. And I bring that to your attention because it's our taxpayer dollars, both in FEMA money, which is federal dollars, that protected the seawall, and in our own personal pockets, to the tune of $3 million since 2006. I'm concerned again about process. And why am I concerned about process? Because we have the Higgins Beach Association who puts together traffic studies with no public input on those traffic studies from people who are not living at the beach. They're homeowners with a vested interest in that property. They should have a vested interest in the property, but I do too because I'm a taxpayer to the tune of $3 million. And we should have a say as well on their traffic studies. And for the council to look and give credence and credit and weight to their studies is not doing a service to the rest of the community. And Judy Roy is known for saying, do the best for the most, how does that go? Do the best for the most with the least. And we're talking about the most being the rest of the citizens here. Again, Higgins Beach is a public beach. Safety, the manager has made that recommendation based on safety. The police department came here and said there is no safety issues. They've given out tickets, but they have not come up here and said.
15 seconds.
Okay, sorry. So in terms of public safety, I haven't seen in the public any proof of any data of a safety issue. Is it an irritant? Yes, it is. And you should go count the cigarette butts on my lawn, because I live on Black Point Road, and people throw out garbage. It's an irritant to me as well. People that live there needs to understand that it's a public beach, and I think we really have to be careful about taking away more and more parking spaces, and that's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ditto everything she just said.
Thank you, Gary.
My name's Dave Green. I live at 135 Beach Ridge Road. For once, I'm in cahoots with Sue Foley Ferguson. But that brings us to a deeper point here.
We mark that down.
Yeah, please put it on the calendar. The council as a whole has dealt with Higgins Beach in the past, and I'll be very brief again instead of beating a dead horse. But I will make you the offer. If you let me go to Public Works and get a road grader with a 12-foot blade, I will create all the parking this town needs at Higgins Beach. Because there's a difference between private property and public highways. And we are not utilizing our public highway down there to its full extent. We have people that have encroached and encroached and encroached. And if you don't think so, you better look at the assessors map put on to the other map. Because Higgins Beach is out of control, okay? We have plenty of parking at Higgins Beach if we wish to create it. And yes, there will be a few people that are going to lose their hedges, their front fence, and some shrubs, but there's plenty of parking at Higgins Beach. All you got to do is look at how wide the road is and what you can put down there. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ryan McDermott. I'm one of the owners of Black Point Surf Shop on 134 Black Point Road. Just expressing my opinion on the matter. I think that the 2 handicap spots are a good idea for the summer months. It makes sense. It's it's a good idea, but for the winter months, I think that we need all the parking that we can get on the beach side. I've grown up surfing there in the winter, and it's one of the few places that we have that's safe to surf. As for the parking, I think that expanding the lot is necessary. Since it's become a public lot, there's been many times when it's been full, and it used to hold, I think, over 100 spaces, where now it's only 60. And limiting that amount of traffic down there is not helping the town, I guess. The more people that can visit the beach, the more people will visit our stores and shops and enjoy it. So I think that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval of 1252.
Second.
It was 1251.
Oh, I'm sorry,
1251.
1251, yes.
1251. Motion has been made and seconded, sorry. Okay. Discussion from the
No
council.
discussion.
Councilor Rankler.
Yeah, from the material here, Manager Hall, could you explain the safety issue or what Bill Bray reasoning was more clearly for me?
Certainly, I do have a larger graphic. Perhaps I'll put that up and I can use that. This graphic was provided to the council in their packet, but the order before you this evening has two elements. The first would be to provide better sight distance for traffic coming out of Morning Street. Traffic, of course, comes one way in this direction down Bayview, and so to provide additional sight distance for these motorists, they're recommending that we eliminate that last space, if you will. So, in fact, we'll double that distance for sight distance. I would note the other traffic consultant suggested that that be even longer or bigger than is proposed here. The second element falling in this category would be to relocate the existing handicap space which exists just on this side, on either side of the existing crosswalk. Suggestion is that we pull that handicap space back one space, really to allow this vehicle to come and go from the space without impacting the crosswalk. Right now, it's impossible to leave, or I suppose you could enter that space if there's no cars parked here without impacting the crosswalk. But for that reason, he suggests that we move that space back by one. Again, the net effect is that we lose the space here and here.
So where the red is for the one by the crosswalk is actually where the handicap spot is now.
Yes, correct.
And that whole space would be given up for nothing, you know what I'm saying, for no additional, a larger handicap vehicle? I mean, do we need to give up the whole entire
That's a
space?
fair point. Perhaps what could be accommodated is a larger, longer space to accommodate a larger vehicle. I would still recommend it be handicap designated, and the balance of that area be crosshatched, so it would not be used for any parking. But your point's well taken. It's possible to provide for a larger space, perhaps.
And I think one of the other suggestions, too, you had asked when we had the meeting, I don't know how long ago, that the color of the striping of those spaces like that be different than the standard color.
Right.
Yeah.
And Tom, forgive me, but I still don't get what the sighting issue is. What isn't being cited when you come out of Morning Street? Because I thought you were turning only one way.
You could actually turn two ways. You can continue down Bayview to the right, or I suspect the more typical movement is to go straight across Morning Street Either way, you're looking at traffic coming down Bayview from the left. And if a car is parked here, they may block the sight distance until it's too late.
I went down there and was given a demonstration of what it would be like for sight distance for a car coming out of that street, looking to the left to see if anything is coming down Bayview. And there were 3 cars parked. They were way up at that point. And a car was parked right adjacent to one that was parked in the proper space, and you could not see that car. So there's a limited, sight distance for those cars coming down Bayview. And the people that do travel down Bayview, much like they travel in most other neighborhoods, go too fast. Even though the speed limit is 25, they seem to exceed that. And so it's fairly dangerous getting out of that. And based on the state regs, as far as DOT, that was the recommendation of Bill Bray. The traffic study done by the residents, however, they recommended even more spaces be eliminated. But Bill Bray felt that this was sufficient to give the proper site.
And Tom, just those little triangles at Morning and Vesper, those are already there?
Yes.
Those are safe pads so that when people are crossing, they have a safe place to stand.
And that's really to designate there is off-season, if you will, parking that's allowed in this section. So those really define as bookends, if you will, the area for parking off-season. Again, to keep cars away from the intersection for its sight distance.
Correct.
Councilor Dander.
I don't know. I don't see the problems down here. I haven't heard from the police department about all these terrible accidents because no one can see and everybody's speeding, and I don't see where there's a problem that you have to go over. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me that you're going to remove a parking space because you have to drive over a walkway to get to it. Yeah, so I just don't see the problems down there. One of the things that we talked a lot about the sight distance when we went over this. I went down there and I did the same exact thing. I didn't find any of these problems. One of the things that still sticks out in my mind was Bill Bray said, parking spaces on the side of a street actually slow traffic down. They're good to have. I say, great, let's add more. So I think it's ridiculous. We have removed so much parking down at Higgins Beach, and we're just every year. It's like putting the lobster in the cold pot of water and turning up the heat and letting him get used to it until he finally dies. That's what we're doing to parking down at Higgins Beach. I don't agree with it, and I won't support it.
Councilor Rancourt.
I got another question. Tom, if looking at this map, where is the handicap exactly? Is it this path here that's there
Yes.
way down to the beach?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, why are we even having a handicap spot back here when their route to the beach is here? Why aren't we having them here, right at that location?
It's
I'm
certainly,
just-
you can designate any spaces you like as handicap. There's no
Right, I'm just
wisdom or
wondering if
magic
it
there.
might not make more sense.
I believe the same issue would prevail, whether it's a handicap space or a regular space.
Yeah, and
believe the
I'm
recommendation-
not arguing that, yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying, maybe if we're gonna do any of this, we should think about the ease of the 2 handicap spaces for people getting to the handicap entrance to the beach.
Other comments or questions? Councilor Hover?
Well, she had nothing else.
Right,
I mean, so this goes to, I mean, we've got all these questions, we've got all these problems. This is move approval on this tonight, again. So, I think I heard somebody speak to this at the podium. Where's the process? We had a process for this when we were going through this last year, and all of a sudden, it's like, well, let's just shove this through, without letting the other side have an opportunity to really speak to this, so that we can really look at this, get to hear both sides from the public, and get other opinions. It stinks. It stinks.
I guess I would comment in saying that we have lost parking spaces because of the parking lot. The numbers of spaces are less, but we never had parking along Bayview before, so 11 spaces is a gain of spaces, not a loss of spaces. And I guess I will say that I've worked long and hard talking with the residents that experience it day in and day out. I've agreed with them sometimes and disagreed with them a lot of times, and they will attest to that. However, what I'm trying to do is do the most, do the best for the most with the least. And all of these changes that we're asking for tonight can be done within budget, without major expenditures of money, and we're not going to add to that $3 million. And it certainly does help the residents of the Higgins Beach area, but one must remember that they do reside in this area too, and they deserve their property to be respected by the people that use it. And they also deserve to have safety, as we all do. So I'm certainly in favor of the adjustments. I don't want to lose two spaces, but for the safety issues, I think that's appropriate. And I think it's a good compromise, and I think that that's one thing that sometimes council does not want to do, is to learn to compromise. Councilor Rancor?
Yeah, I just want to say that I hear you loud and clear, Councilor Roy, and I actually agree with you. And because that's exactly my argument at Black Point Road at Oak Hill. And that we want our residences respected, our left-hand turn into the new development, should it continue. We want respect for the water runoff that's going to be involved with that development and how it's going to change our neighborhood. The traffic situation, which has not been dealt with at all. So in that spirit, I will support this in hopes that the same will be offered to every neighborhood in Scarborough who has these kind of problems. I would, though, Tom, think that perhaps the thought about that handicap spot, moving it might, I mean, I'm not an engineer or anything, but it might make more sense to make the one that's on the left a regular parking spot and move the handicap together.
Yes, the
To
intention,
make it go down, for those people to get out and wheel their wheelchairs down there.
You might have a larger vehicle, and that was a very good point, Councilor Rancor.
certainly the intention always has been to have those spaces convenient and proximate to the access point.
Right.
Other questions or comments?
Oh, Jessica, you didn't get to talk.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I just had, well, I do have a comment too, but I did have a question. Just something that was brought up earlier as far as the off-season. This is, the off-season parking is different than what you're looking at. This would be just for the summer months, and then the regular kind of free-for-all, for lack of a better term, would apply, correct?
Generally, in the wintertime, there's really no action taken. All the spaces are used, even the drop-off areas in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem at all for the police department nor the residents that reside in the area. And they're pretty much all open, and they also have the additional spaces from morning down to vesper as well.
Okay. There's just a clarification. I did spend, I'm sorry, I'm so squeaky. I did spend some time, a couple of different days, actually, that I went down there. I did see the problem coming out of Morning Street. It just so happened the day I was there. There's a rather large SUV parked there in that last space, and you can't see across it. So I can understand removing the one spot. And certainly, as far as the other spot goes too, you can't have a crosswalk that leads you into the middle of a car door either. So, again, sometimes it's a compromise. I don't love losing spaces, but sometimes it's a safety thing too. So I'll plan on supporting it.
Other comments? Council Benedict?
I also spent a considerable amount of time down there reviewing this and other things within the Higgins Beach area, and agree with the fact that the safety issue, to me, is the prime issue for losing those two spots. The first thing that came to mind was having a spot of any sort near a crosswalk makes no sense whatsoever. They're dangerous as they are. Crosswalks are dangerous as they are without having cars parked right by them. And I would tend to support this in front of the council.
Further comments? All those in favor? Thank you. All opposed? Thank you.
Order number 12-52, act to authorize the town manager to expend funds from the Higgins Beach Parking CIP account. Current balance is $102,391 to expand the current parking lot, $40,000, and allocate a portion of these funds, $24,750, to continue to construct the raised sidewalk on Bayview Avenue to Morning Street.
Comments from the public? Manager
Yes,
Hall?
this action is to authorize the use of existing capital improvement monies that were originally designated just for Higgins Beach. We've used a portion of those funds, about two-thirds of them, for improvement of the lot so far. And so there's an excess, there's a balance of $102,000 and some change, and certainly it's within the will of this council, or it's within your right, if it's your will, to reallocate those funds for other projects such as the ones proposed here. I would note, as regards the parking lot expansion, we do have one summer of experience. There was 10 or 12 days. They were typical hot weather beach days where the lot was full. I would also note that the pricing was not perhaps consistent with all other beaches in terms of the lot fees. That may have had some effect. And the final point, we've padded this authorization a bit, knowing that I need to work with the abutters to make sure we mitigate any impacts that we may have. We do have very firm and accurate cost quotes for the actual expansion project, but there may be some incidental expenses that we'd like the ability to make sure we're good neighbors, frankly. Beyond that, there was a suggestion that we try to expand the sidewalk on Bayview larger than a conventional 5-foot sidewalk. We'll certainly look at that. I think there are some issues. We certainly can't encroach on the dune area at all, but there may be some additional space, a foot or two, that we can gain on the street side without impacting the travelway. So that's something we'll consider to provide as wide a sidewalk as possible.
Thank you. Pleasure of the council.
Move approval of 1253.
Second.
1252.
52.
Thank you.
I did it again.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments, questions?
I do.
Go ahead. And then Council Benedict. That's all right, go ahead.
Okay. Tom, the raised sidewalk, is it this yellow line, or is it, where are we talking about?
It essentially, yes, that yellow line would depict the general area.
So it wouldn't be adding more sidewalk, it would just be widening what we have now?
No, what's painted in yellow is just crosshatched. It's done with paint, but there's no vertical separation, there's no curb or conventional sidewalk that exists.
All right,
So the
thank you.
proposal would be to connect to the sidewalk that exists at the end of the seawall project and continue that on to Morning Street.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Benedict.
One thing I wanted to bring up that, in case people are not aware of, potentially within our agenda to come, is the fact that the beach permits will include the Higgins Beach parking lot. so that the residents, it's a benefit to the residents, because it won't just be the prior two that have been in existence for a long time, but it'll also include Higgins Beach, which could possibly create more of an interest for the town to go there.
Other comments, questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Order number 12-53, act on the request to adopt the Integrated Pest Management Policy. This policy shall supersede and replace the policy entitled Town of Scarborough Pest Management Policy, adopted September 21st, 2011.
Should I do the acknowledgement first, or?
Yes, I would.
First, what I'd like to do is before we go with public comment, is to acknowledge the receipt of 2 letters from fellow councilors alleging ethics violations, which are serious and certainly will require council attention at a time in the very near future, not tonight. With that being said, I first would like to ask the question, is there any councilor who at this time would like to offer any disclosure?
Yes.
Councilor Sullivan.
I would. I'd like to speak to the accusations that were made that I guess assumed came from the public to the councilors. To explain the story, in 1972, my father started a business that was R.J. Sullivan Landscaping. That business all us boys worked in. As time went on, at 17 years old, I left the business. I went out on my own. I called my business R.J. Sullivan Landscaping. As time went on, my brother took the business over. My father passed away. My brother had worked for the town, I believe, 18 to 20 years now, doing only mowing ball fields in schools, doing some shrub cutting, never ever putting down pesticides or herbicides or any of that stuff. That was all left to another contractor. We both have separate federal ID numbers and have never worked together or shared any money, or I've never taken any money from him whatsoever. I have nothing to do with the bid process in the 5 years I've served on the council. Nothing at all. That would be up to the department heads that are in charge of it and the town manager. I have no idea who gets the bids. My brother and I barely talk. We don't have family functions, and we don't go on trips. So it's just cordial, hi, and unfortunately, that's the way it is. However, one of the things I want to mention is right here on page 22 of the community services budget, which handles the grounds. There's no mention at all in here on naming of any vendor that does work for the town. When we vote on this, it's voted as a lump sum, like it's not itemized. You can look online for yourself. There's nothing there that tells you what vendors are doing. I would never even know if my brother won or lost a contract. One of the bill heads here that I have that says R.J. Sullivan Lawn Care. And mine is R.J. Sullivan Landscaping, LLC. Once again, separate federal tax ID numbers. We don't work together. We have our own crews. We do our own thing. And I think as the charges continue on and it takes its process, I think once my fellow councilors look at it and reason with it, I believe I will be vindicated of these charges. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment.
Hi, Carrie
About
Korth.
the issue, not the person.
Carrie Korthell, 1 Wedgwood Street. As many people know, I'm involved in a lot of town things and go to a lot of town meetings. And I'll leave the technical details of pesticides up to other people. And I think we've already had some fantastic testimony about that, and we'll have some more. But the process of passing the organic pesticide management policy was the most public, inclusive, and best practice I have seen in the 4 years I've been here in Scarborough. There's nothing that's happened in this town that had a better or longer or more inclusive process than that. I am not just disappointed, I am disgusted that town staff have not implemented the policy in any way, shape, or form, including the committee. I don't think there's any excuse for that at all. There's talk of a lot of things, and there may be some things that are not 100% directly illegal, but there's such a thing as ethics, which I'm seeing a slide, in my opinion, of some things that are done in town and the way things are done in town. The person who votes against something that's passed by the council cannot bring anything up for reconsideration for, they have to be part of the majority who voted for it to bring it for reconsideration. And in my mind, this new policy rewrite without any public process or notice beforehand is an indirect way of trying to bring up reconsideration. It's not legal according to the rules. It's not ethical. And I really hope that the council has the courage to do the right thing and table this, institute the committee with the 7 people that are supposed to be on this committee, especially the 2 people who are the most knowledgeable about organic pesticides and use policies. And I just hope you do the right thing and you have the courage to do the right thing. I'd hate to have to think that the people leading this town do not know how to behave ethically. I really hope that you don't disappoint me on that issue. Thank you.
Joan Laurie, 21 East Grand Avenue. I would like to applaud Kerry for doing all the research and being steadfast in her resistance to this issue being placed back on under consideration. I don't understand why something that was decided and passed in September after a lengthy process would have to be reconsidered. And I also would ask you to, if tabling is what's required, to do so, and let this at least one season play out with, with the recommendations of the pesticide, the organic pesticides, and go from there. I can see maybe reconsidering it after it's, you voted for it and it's in place. Let it go, let it be, and then reconsider it if it's too expensive or it doesn't work or there are weeds on places that weren't weeds before, whatever reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Rita Breton, 23 Spurwink Road. As others have expressed here tonight, I too am extremely disappointed that the town is deliberately trying to revoke and replace the organic pest management policy that this council passed with a vote of 4-1 only 6 months ago. To do this is disrespectful of your own 2011 Ordinance Committee, who spent more than a year researching and vetting the current pest management policy. It is disrespectful of the 4 town councilors who gave full consideration to this policy before they voted to pass it last fall. And it is disrespectful of the citizens of Scarborough, who have a right to expect that a policy duly adopted by their town council will be implemented. The attempt to revoke this policy before it has even had a chance to be put in place is clearly a breach of the public trust, calling into question, I am sad to say, the credibility and integrity of this council. The counselor who asked that the policy be rewritten and who presents it to the council tonight for an immediate vote is the one counselor who voted against the pest management policy last fall. And according to the town's own policy, a counselor who is voted in the minority may not bring the same issue before the council for another vote, for obvious reasons. Please respect the hard work of your own ordinance committee, and please respect the citizens of this town by voting no on this revised policy. I urge you to fully implement the pest management policy passed last fall, including the immediate appointment of the Pest Management Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry Eddy, 7 Higgins Creek Road, Scarborough. I really need to understand what happened to that whole year of work. The pesticide policy just spent over a year in the Ordinance Committee with the hard work of citizens, Ordinance Committee members, and counselors, with endless meetings, testimony, experts, fact-finding, scientific data, letters, emails, newspaper articles, draft tweaking, education for the public, and more. Was all that testimony and data passed on? Why was a policy which was just passed this fall not even given a chance to be enacted this spring, when lawn care actually begins? Are you saying that we must start this entire information and fact-finding process yet again? It certainly can't be replicated in only this one night. Or that a new revised policy can suddenly be introduced and passed in less than 1 week out of nowhere. I work over at the Adult Learning Center. I had to ask for time off of work to attend some of these meetings. Other folks had to get babysitters. I had already moved forward this fall, starting to offer classes to educate citizens about the transition to organic lawn care practices. I included them in my course catalog, which reaches every Scarborough home, business, and post office box, over 10,000 copies. It's right here, and this went out with the courses. Beyond getting citizens up to speed on organics, it was meant to help town staff be more supported by knowledgeable citizens while they work through the imperfect transition process themselves. I'm also staff advisor to ECOS, the High School Students Environmental Club. After our ECOS president testified supporting the original policy this fall and it passed, the club moved forward and displayed the newspaper articles about organic policies on their bulletin board, as well as educational materials on soil science and organics. They also invited a special NAFA-certified landscaper to speak at their member meeting and introduce organic lawn care. I was our condo president. We prided ourselves in being sure to get new landscape bids every couple of years. It was not my money, it was the condo owners, so that was the right thing to do. We requested organic and non-organic bids and had a chance to compare them. I know we had not done the town bids in lawn care for a really long time, but I'm pleased to hear this is being done this year. My hope is that bids include both organic and conventional. Overall, my hope is to get people inspired about trying organic practices. It's just a win-win situation on just too many levels, too much to ignore. Sustainable practices are now even being taught in our schools. Much of Canada and many other countries are going organic. So let's try to get some catch-up. Once we understand the simple horticultural science and truth about soil and plant biology and OPM, it's almost like a light of understanding goes off, a paradigm shifts. Simply, it is wisdom and truth, aligning with science, aligning with nature, and reaping the rewards of human environmental health as a beneficial byproduct. All this, and it doesn't have to cost more than conventional IPM. Please explore websites such as the outstanding one by Citizens for a Green Camden or Cumberland County Soil and Water District's Yardscaping website. And finally, and this is unfortunately ironic, remember our cherished Scarborough Marsh. It's named after Rachel Carson, nationally acclaimed scientist and author, and mother of the modern-day anti-pesticide movement. It's the 50th anniversary of her famed book called Silent Spring, a book on the dangers of pesticides.
Just ask that people try to stay within the 3-minute, and then if certainly you'll have a second chance if you...
My name is Marla Zando. I live at 6 Mitchell Hill Road in Scarborough. I'm here to express my disappointment that an integrated pest management policy is on tonight's agenda. I attended all the ordinance committee meetings at which our current pest management policy was discussed. They occurred monthly over the course of a year, right here in this room at Town Hall at 4:30 p.m. on Mondays or Tuesdays. The public, town staff, landscape professionals, and concerned citizens were all welcome at these meetings. It was an open, transparent, and public process. The result was a policy that the ordinance committee thought was ready for the full council to vote on. The council did vote to adopt the pest management policy on September 21st, 2011. Now there's an IPM policy on the agenda tonight when the current policy has not even been in effect for 1 year. Some say that the cost of going organic is too expensive. Everything I've read shows that by the third year of using a comprehensive organic turf maintenance program, costs actually go down. Others may say that synthetic pesticides are warranted in certain situations, for example, in the case of grubs. Organic alternatives are available. And I've actually spoken to the head of the Parks and Rec Department for the town of Brunswick. They have a similar kind of policy. And they've used nematodes to deal with grubs. And his name's Peter. I can't remember his last name, but he said it worked great and that he'd be willing to talk to anybody from Scarborough about it. The use of synthetic pesticides is allowed with our current policy in emergency situations. This is a really strong policy that really protects our citizens, our pets, and the environment. Organic turf maintenance will work if the town is truly committed to it. In fact, a number of towns have similar policies, including Agunquit, Camden, Brunswick, Rockland, and Castine. Just over a month ago, Eddie Wooden, a well-known resident of Scarborough, received the EcoMaine Eco Excellence Award. He was nominated by the town of Scarborough for this award in part for his work on the pest management policy that helps protect our fragile Scarborough marsh. Tonight, in one vote, Eddie's work to protect the marsh through his work on the ordinance committee can be completely undone. I'm here before you tonight because I personally am concerned about the health of our citizens, especially the health of our young children that play on the ball fields and in the parks of our town. Some of the chemicals that have been put on town-owned land in the past few years are actually banned in parts of Canada and banned in parts of the United States. Some of these chemicals can cause endocrine disruption, birth defects, developmental defects, and cancer in humans, and they're highly toxic to aquatic organisms. And this information came from the material safety data sheets provided to me by the town of Scarborough. A lifetime of exposure to these chemicals can have detrimental effects that we don't even fully understand right now. That's why I respectfully ask that the town council ensure that the full implementation of the pest management policy adopted by the town council on September 21st, 2011 be fully implemented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, Town Councilors, I'm Dr. Jim Meyer. I live for the last 35 years at 274 Black Point Road. I'm a psychiatric physician, a long-term member of Physicians for Social Responsibility, and for the last 7 or 8 years I've been a member of Maine Medical Association's Public Health Committee. And I can assure you all of us share the belief that the precautionary principle should be followed in this instance and any other instance where there's accumulating evidence that links a chemical to some very bad outcomes. As a child psychiatrist, I worry not about acute poisoning, but the cumulative effects that the last speaker referenced. Endocrine disruption, learning disabilities, ADHD, those kinds of things can affect the trajectory of a child's education and their whole life. And what we don't know is, as we expose young people, and worse yet, exposing unborn fetuses to these chemicals. By the way, placentas don't filter out bad chemicals, they concentrate them at a time when brain development is causing neurons to migrate and the whole brain architecture is being set up. So I think we really need to follow the original ordinance, which talks about the precautionary principle. We have the loophole in the ordinance that was passed. It says if there's a true emergency, if we have a plague of locusts, or if there's a serious infestation of Japanese beetles, I hate them as much as everybody else, and other options have been tried or are not working, then we go to IPM rather than OPM. So why come now, as other speakers have said so eloquently, trying to replace a policy that hasn't even yet been tried, and which does have the loopholes if we need them? I hope that the council will do the right thing, because I think a lot of people in Scarborough will be quite dismayed if this backdoor attempt to scuttle a very public debate should occur. Thank you.
My name's Dave Green. I live at 135 Beach Ridge Road. Again. I got to tell the council as a whole that I'm a little dismayed at this entire process that's gone on. This whole thing about pesticides. Again, town of Scarborough tried to reinvent the wheel. The Department of Agriculture has a list of practices that they recommend. They are considered safe, and I am all for being organic, okay? I practice that on my own property. I own 20 acres. I run a commercial blueberry farm. I know what you're talking about, okay? But some things cannot be done organically. I don't care. And I will argue that some other time. But I do believe the town of Scarborough needs to come up with a plan that's in conjunction with the Department of Agriculture, so that we can follow the best management practices and do what needs to be done. If we can do it organically, I'm all for it. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Elizabeth Peoples, 152 Spurwink Road. Just two quick comments. One, I asked you to consider the process here. How can you vote on this revised policy while you still have a conflict of interest issue pending? That is the basis for the conflict of interest. The revised policy and that whole issue stems from at least the conflict of interest, if not more, concerns. The other is that last Thursday, Paul Tukey, national speaker on organics, spoke at the library, and he addressed the issue of grubs, which is a concern right now. And he gave an explanation as to how that can be handled organically and how that can be handled successfully with organics. We have provided, the citizens for Green Scarborough have provided the names of Peter Bottomley, the owner of Coast of Maine, and Casco Bay Lawn Care, which provides organics, Paul Tukey, and a number of other resources, so that we're not saying, go ahead and try this without providing the tools. We are more than willing to work. That advisory committee is passionate about putting this together, and we actually did discuss in September of 2011 at the meeting the long-term economic effects of how people will come to the town of Scarborough because we have an organic policy in place, and because their children and grandchildren will want to stay here because the waters are clean and the fields are clear. I ask you to keep those in mind when you consider the revised policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Coley-Frisson, 331 Black Point Road. I got wind of this a long time ago because they wanted me to get involved 2 years ago with this program, and I couldn't. I just did not have the time. I was working on the smart meter stuff. and I just didn't have the time, Elisa. Before I forget to say, because this is sort of sort of a little piece of it, the advisory committee was reduced down to 5 from 7, and the two people that were removed from the advisory committee on your new policy were the organic specialists. Crazy. So even if there is a goodwill effort in order to work with both, you really want to have a mix of people on there, both that have used them and have not used them, and have used them for years, not just started either. I want to tell you, I studied biology. I have a Bachelor of Science in biology, plant biology as well, from the University of Michigan, and I also spent 5 years landscaping in Maine. And I can tell you right now that I use pesticides, and that I think, in some cases there may be a place for them. However, parents and teachers and town councilors are charged with protecting the health and safety of, and if there's a better way of doing things, then that's what you're elected to do. Everyday practices that are being made have been creating major problems with children's health. The typical soccer field is deluged with a mixture of poisons that are designed to kill. These are designed to kill. They're endocrine disruptors. And a counselor, what I read in the newspaper was that there's no problems with it. However, companies such as the landscapers kept saying that chemicals are registered with the EPA, they're registered with the state, so they're assumed safe. This is not true. Just like radio frequency radiation. Just because it's registered does not mean it's safe. It does not constitute an approval rating. You can go onto EPA site if you like, website. Constitute an approval rating or a safety claim of any sort. In fact, 36 of the most commonly used lawn care pesticides that were registered, here they are. 14 are probable carcinogens, that's causing cancer. 15 are linked with birth defects. At least 21 reproductive effects, which I know quite well, all about. 24 with neurotoxicity. Talk to any veterinarian and ask them what dogs are dying of. It's cancer, and there's a reason. Their heads are right next to the field, and so are our kids. 22 of those commonly used lawn cares are associated with liver and kidney damage. Out of 99 human studies done on lymphoma by the did you say we could have another time after everybody's done? Lymphoma Society, 75 of them show a connection between exposure to pesticides. I'm going to email you guys some information. I wasn't involved in this at all, but the process, I do know a lot about the process, and those council rules did mean that someone voting in the minority is not supposed to bring it forward. I understand that there's an illegal opinion out there. However, I was involved in creating those policies, and I know that the intent is that we don't keep reinventing the wheel, as Mr. Green has said, that we allow it to work. Organics is going to take time. It's not going to be that. Oh, just one more thing, Judy, I know. I did want to tell you 2 incorrect things that they said. One were the safe products. Just because they're registered doesn't mean they're safe. There is no such thing as a symbiotic relationship between a pesticide and the ground. That is an absurd. And the one thing that is correct, it's going to take more than 1 year. It's going to take some time, but that's a commitment to safety and commitment to health and the health of our children. I could say so much more. Okay, thank you.
You're at 4.5 now.
Can I speak one more time?
You haven't spoken this time yet. Absolutely.
Eddie Wooden, 34 Clearwater Drive. I became interested in this process 2 years ago because of nature and birds. And when I started partnering with other citizens, Marla really had a passion for young children and the effects. And that really started to pique my interest as a collective issue. And I started to think, I'm a college athlete, played on a number of fields, and oftentimes the athletic fields are away from the education buildings. In Scarborough, we don't have that situation. And I don't know if anyone here has ever taken a compass and gone down to the athletic fields to see north-south, southerly winds and direction. I did. And I've been wanting to do it for a year, and I did it this week. And I don't want to create false specter, but when you have the athletic fields in a bowl, which I call a toxic bowl, the fungicides on the athletic artificial field are very significant. When we left here in one of the meetings a year ago, I know some of the landscapers, Al and Sully and all, and I respect them. One of them said to me, forget the pesticides and herbicides, it's the fungicides. And I had no idea. That's just his comment. So I'm at the field, and now the high school is due south, and the Wentworth is due north. And in the spring, when a lot of these are applied, you have a south-southwest wind. I have a 10-year journal, nature journal, tracking winds. It's south-southwest. We've had some illnesses at Wentworth. They said it was mold. There was no mold. And I don't want to raise false specter, but I know Duke. I just gave him an article in Ohio where there was a drift after an application. I have concerns that the whole management from Gulliver, that gentleman's area, are weather conditions of application, et cetera. And I'm just I have a concern that toxicity is an issue, and that these athletic fields are very close to the high school and to Wentworth, and that should be considered, should be explored, and the organics, in my view, break down faster, are less toxic, and would create less of an issue. Thank you.
I would highly recommend the council more fully explore the issue of conflict. I think there's a number of guideposts that you can look to. There was a memorandum provided this evening. I apologize for the late hour that it arrived, just moments before your meeting. But it does provide, I think, a good, thorough overview of statutory and common law guidance. And I would highly recommend that you refer to that. And essentially, there are a number of different standards or tests that you should be considering. One is the straight personal pecuniary interests. That can be direct or indirect. Those are financial interests relative to any relationship. Beyond that, there are other standards in state law and Title 30A relative to appearance of impropriety. That's a bit of a more ticklish standard to get your arms around, but nonetheless, that is a part of state law. And then beyond that, there are even more somewhat historical references. Nonetheless, they're very important and ought to be applied in this case, having to do with relationships and affinity through blood relations. There's a Latin term, consanguinity, I believe is the correct term, that applies in this case. All of those standards, I think, apply in this case and should be considered as regards the issue of conflict.
Councilor Solomon?
Yeah, I just, as far as the voting on this order, I think to settle some of the concerns, I recluse myself from voting on the issue, and I would like to reserve the right to speak on it. I think the policy, stands on its own, and it'll be up to the councilors here to decide if it's the best way to go or not.
We don't have a motion before us yet, do we?
No, we don't. We just we need a decision.
Well, I without one, and I'm not sure if I'm in order or not, but I'm going to call a point of order at this point and state that I think I am going to request that this issue be tabled indefinitely based on Council Rule 125.0 reconsideration, with particular emphasis on item 125.2 that says a counselor that a petition to the council in the same or substantially the same form for a period of 1 year, next succeeding the council's final actions on the original petition be precluded. In addition, there are a number of items that I want to ask that this happen under Town Council Policy, Rules and Procedures, 200.0, breach of rules and orders. There's been a lot said here tonight that had nothing to do with my concern about the rules and the breaches of council ethics. What I really am in particular concerned about is Rule 200.7, disclosure statement by town councilors, 200.7.A, 200.7.B, 200.7.C, and the fact that we have not had a hearing among the councilors, not for public, not be in front of the public, unless the counselor wishes to have that. I never asked for it to be in the public, but I think we have got the cart before the horse here, and that we need to take this time. I have a lot to say on the policy. I was not granted special dispensation to speak before any of this came up, as at least one member of council was. I would be more than happy to explain my reasons for my antipathy to the proposal that is happening tonight. So without further ado, I ask for a second to table indefinitely.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
There's no discussion.
No discussion.
Discussion on a table. All those in favor of tabling? Opposed?
Thank you. Then I now ask to have a chance to make my remarks regarding this item, as you allowed the other counselor to.
Yeah,
Since there was that was, to me, was out of order before, I don't see why I can't be taken out of order as well. And so I will continue unless you want to gavel me out of order.
I wanted to just clear up the disclosure statement and whether or not this council, the rest of the council, agree with his offer to enter into the discussion about the issue, the order, but not vote on the order.
The answer is no for me, because he's in violation of these policies.
But I would
think
put
you need to
that,
call for a
I
vote
would
on that.
call for that vote. How many are in favor of allowing Councilor Sullivan to participate in the deliberation and discussion and perhaps present the order, but refrain from voting? All those in favor of that? You can't vote.
Oh, okay.
Opposed? Okay. So, Councilor Sullivan can participate in the deliberations and can make comments just as you, but will refrain from voting on the order.
Shall there be a motion for,
Well, there wasn't a motion before Council Sullivan got a chance to speak previously on his issue.
That was because he needed the ability to, I asked if any counselor had a disclosure.
Well, I have a disclosure.
I gave everybody that opportunity.
And obviously, this was preset. This is not what I call a free and open discussion. I think,
Councilor Rancourt, I talked with legal counsel this afternoon. That's the setting. There's no backdoor business to it. We had to contact legal counsel, just as you and Councilor DeAndrea did. And we have to do things the way in which the laws present and the rules present.
I don't know that Councilor DeAndrea talked to counsel. I have my counsel here. Would you like to hear from him?
But I just, don't accuse me of doing anything backdoor and without process. I have spent the whole day on this matter.
And one attorney gave you one opinion. That's all you've heard.
He is the attorney for the town, and
But
that's
that
what we
doesn't make
have
him
to do.
God. He's an attorney. Would you like to hear from my attorney?
Not necessarily. I would like to hear from you.
Well, am I going to be allowed to speak now? Am I?
want to entertain a motion to get this?
All right, I'll go right ahead and speak then. With regard to this pest management policy that is before us tonight, pest management policy that was adopted on September 21st, 2011, says that it is the express policy of Scarborough to refrain from the use of pesticides upon the property it owns, uses, or controls, except in situations that pose an imminent threat of serious injury to persons, property, or agriculture. Now, I was told that it's the duty of the council to protect the investment and the property of Scarborough. This allows for that very thing to happen in the existent policy. Under Section 2 authority, I was also told by a member of council that the town manager said that he had to get permission from the yet-to-be-formed committee before he could take any actions. Section 2 authority states, the Scarborough town manager shall oversee the implementation of the pest management policy. A pest management advisory committee shall act in an advisory capacity to develop and oversee a pest management program consistent with this policy, and advise the town manager of any problems encountered or amendments required to achieve the full and successful implementation of this policy. This is not having the manager go before the committee to get permission to do anything. And finally, my final comment about this policy is, of course, I'm not going to find it. Under Section 8, emergency situations and exemptions. The decision to grant a waiver is the responsibility of the town manager. In emergencies, if practical, the town manager shall meet with the Pest Management Advisory Committee to seek advice on granting a waiver. Doesn't say he has to, he says if practical. In the event that the committee is not able to be consulted prior to the decision, the town manager shall provide timely notice of the decision, and the committee is encouraged to meet as soon as possible thereafter. Transparency in government. That's what this policy stands for, and it doesn't tie the hands of any manager of this town, in any department head, in any aspect of this town's hierarchy. Thank you.
Before we go further with comments, because everybody is very concerned with process, and process is really important, so I need a motion on the floor so that we can continue the discussion and do it right, because we've been accused of not using process. So could I have a motion, please?
Approval of order number 12-53.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Further discussion? Anybody? Councilor DeAndrea.
I honestly, I don't know how we could get this far when this proposed policy is predicated on violations of Chapter 302. We can't legally vote on this tonight. It violates, and I'm gonna reiterate this quickly because I'm not sure people are getting this. It violates Section 125.2, period. It doesn't give the current policy that period for 1 year. There's just no way to get around that. Then there's this issue of the conflict of interest. This is not about voting tonight. This is about the fact that this conflict of interest prohibits a counselor from even putting in this policy because of the conflict of interest. The conflict of interest does not say anything about people not talking to their siblings or their immediate family. It doesn't say, it doesn't make any exceptions for the fact that we never see the full community services budget. All it says is, it's very simple. that the counselor must recuse themselves, and I believe also not have an opportunity to introduce something if him or herself or him or hers immediate family has a conflict of interest. The immediate family has a financial conflict of interest of $40,000. $40,000. That's $39,000 more than what the conflict of interest policy talks about here. That's a big chunk of change. It also talks about personal interest. There's a conflict of personal interest here, and that nothing shall be construed to prohibit any town, well, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing. So again, his or her immediate family has a financial or special or personal interest. And that personal interest in this case is landscaping. Doesn't have anything to do with using pesticides or not using pesticides. It still is a personal and financial interest. We worked hard. I was on both of the ordinance committees that worked on this policy. I wanted it to go as an ordinance. So for everybody that thinks there was, no common ground, and there was. I didn't want it, we wanted it, we worked it out, there was a compromise. So yes, there were compromises with this policy. I wanted it to be more strict. I wanted the town manager to have less authority over whether synthetics were used. Well, we talked about that. There was a compromise there. The town manager was left with an overriding ability to use synthetic pesticides. He used his authority. I'll say, I think, wrongly, but there is an education process here. There's a learning curve. There's no doubt about it. We went back and forth for over a year. With the introduction of this policy, again, I have not heard any valid arguments for why this was even submitted. I don't know. There was no documentation given to me. I don't know why it's good. Nobody's proven to me that it's better than what we currently have. When we worked on the current policy, we provided this council, we provided the ordinance committee with all kinds of information over a year. We had meeting after meeting after meeting. I want to know, I mean, for me, one of my big questions is, why is this being brought up so late in the game? Why were these concerns not raised in, let's see, this was passed in September? Why weren't they raised in October, or November, or December, or January, or February? And all of a sudden, in March, we're changing the policy. It's like at the 11th hour. Let's sneak this in. Where is the process? There was none. There were no concerns raised by anyone for 6 months. But all of a sudden, now we're hearing, we've got a new policy. It's the end-all to beat-all, but nobody has told us why. Yeah, I'm mad. Because I have heard public outcry. Not one or two people, but public. At least a couple of dozen emails. All these people that got up here tonight, we heard 2 people, maybe 3 people against. This is about what the Scarborough citizens want. This is not about what one counselor thinks they need or they want because they felt they didn't get enough information. They had a year in which to pay attention to get enough information. All right, I'm getting out of control. I'll take a breather.
Counselor Benedict.
Well, thank God I wasn't part of any of this till I got elected. However, a couple of points I want to bring up. just as common sense, which is not always as common as it should be. We seem to be trying to multitask in two areas. One, the problem is the process, and the second problem is the use of pesticides, fungicides, fertilizer, etc. I don't believe for a minute that we can concentrate on two important items of this stature at the same time. That's first. And I think we're just spinning wheels, going back and forth, bringing up the part of, we have a problem here, and then we have a problem there. You have to identify, get through it, compromise, whatever, to gain any headway. I have had a business for over 40 years, and I do understand how businesses work, and I personally would be satisfied if I could hear from either of my two constituents to my left at the end what they are basing their accusations on. I find these accusations very serious, and I think that they need to be looked into. And if the recommendations come out that they are wrong, what do we do then? We've got two counselors that are ganging up on one counselor who has proceeded to give us a reasonable explanation, or reasonable to me, that there is not any tie-ins. I rather look at it the other way. You've got someone in the landscaping business for 40-odd years, 30 years. I didn't keep track, so Richard, sorry. And I like to gain from his knowledge. I don't believe for a second that there is any money mixturing. I don't believe there is any commingling between himself and his brother. They're two. I think he's presented a soluble set of facts that two separate businesses, and somewhere along the line, people aren't understanding that or agreeing with it. That's okay, but that's not going to solve the problem with the pesticides. And no one has further asked the town manager for his reasons in overriding, if you may want to call it that, and going to the IPM instead of the OPM. And maybe we should do that, because I think we're just standing back, whipping stuff against the walls that is not going to bring an end to this problem. Thank you.
Council Sullivan.
I've been on the council for 5 years. I read the rules. I interpret the rules that I did not fall into the categories that were mentioned tonight. If I believe that if I did fall into them categories, it was also the responsibility of the town manager before Tom to advise me of this, knowing that my brother did work for the town. So I bring this policy forward, and now all of a sudden, this is a tool, a leverage tool to take and kind of get me off to the side and not and make everything look illegitimate. This policy that is forward, the BMP, is endorsed by the Maine Board of Pesticide Control, University of Maine Cooperative Extension Service, Maine Department of Education, and the Maine Department of Agriculture. It's right in there. And, laugh tee-hee, like you did last time. But this policy is a common sense policy, and I think, I'm going to let it stand on its own, The counselors here have read it and gone over it, and it's going to be up to them to make a decision, a sound decision, whether this is a good policy or not. And great show.
Council Hover.
Well, I have two things. The first one is, unfortunately, as you can see, things have been a little hectic over the last week or so, and frankly, I'm a little disappointed. Certainly, I commend you, Richard, for, recusing yourself. I think, honestly, that's probably the best thing you could do. And it certainly opens my own eyes quite a bit. It's an interesting thing to have roots in your community and to be from the town and have family within the town, because there is very much a possibility that you wind up having, on some scale, a conflict. My father's, who's sitting right there, is an oil burner man, and we're replacing our oil burner here in Town Hall. Maybe I need to recuse myself from that. My brother lives here in town. He's a car salesman. Maybe I should recuse myself anytime we have vehicles up for purchase. It's something you certainly have to internally look at, and it's an interesting point that's been brought to light. But certainly, at the end of the day, I think you've done right by recusing yourself. So back to what's important, and unfortunately is getting lost in all of this, is the management plan. And unfortunately, this policy has been so overshadowed by all the other shenanigans that that's being left out. This is a phenomenal policy, and I really, truly hope people take the time to read this. It's a best management practice that came, like Richard said, and unfortunately, this information, I was on ordinance, I was on while we did the pesticide committee, and this information was not made available to me because they themselves over the last year have been working on this. And it was not adopted and approved by them until February 24th of this year. I certainly can wholeheartedly support this. It's a management plan that and it says right in itself, if you're doing the things that you should be doing, if you're mowing, if you're watering, if you're doing all of the things, you shouldn't have to be using much. And whether that's an organic pesticide or it's a synthetic pesticide is irrelevant. If you're doing the things you should be, you shouldn't have to use it. So this creates, and this is the beauty of this proposal, a level system. Every blade of grass in this town is going to be assigned a level, from level 1 to level 4. Level 4 means you do nothing to it. You mow it and you water it, and that's it. You never put another thing into it. Level 1, which is going to be far and few, as far as these are your super high traffic fields, athletic fields where they're getting stomped to death on a regular basis. Needs a little more tender loving care, but that doesn't negate the fact that we are still going to be in an organic approach. And there's certainly, again, everything from what should be acceptable levels of pests in your 1 through 4 system. What is an acceptable amount of weeds? What are things that you can do that are alternatives to those pests before you have to go to a pesticide? And again, whether that's an organic or a synthetic, the main thought here and the main focus remains the same, which is, and I'm going to quote it from the opening statement, Scarborough recognizes that the use of pesticides may have profound effects upon indigenous plants, surface water, and groundwater, as well as unintended effects upon people, birds, and other animals in the vicinity of treated areas. Scarborough recognizes that this is in the best interest of public health to limit the use of pesticides. Now, that's pesticides, period. Whether it's synthetic, whether it's organic, is irrelevant. We don't want to use any more than we absolutely have to, no matter what it is. And if we're doing what we should be doing, we won't need to.
Okay. And that's basically some of the things that I wanted to speak to, is the policy itself, because as you can see, I have read the policies. I do my homework. The issue, Richard's issue of the ethics, I certainly think that he meets the criteria, and I applaud him for taking the action that he did tonight. The thing that really bothers me is the comments that I've had on the phone with a few people and comments that were made tonight, accusing us of meeting secretly, behind closed doors, behind the scenes, backdoor thing, not being transparent. I am so tired of those kinds of comments. I have put 14 years into the town council, and I don't meet secretly and in back doors and back rooms and do those kinds of things. And it's an insult to me, and I would hope an insult to the rest of this council. That's all I will say about that. The policy itself, I have compared both of them. There are some major differences as far as verbiage, i.e., Richard's proposal, which he has every right as a town councilor. Any one of us has a right as a town councilor to seek out the town manager and ask him to help us write something to present to the rest of the council. That's one of the rights that we do have. That's the town manager council form of government. So I've compared things. And when I look at this, what I'm hearing tonight is people are thinking that we are just going to go out there and blatantly put pesticides and harsh chemicals down, and we're not going to do that. Excuse me, I did not make comments when you were speaking, and I expect the same from you. Okay? If you take the opportunity to look at the request for proposal, which I just lost. Where is it? Now, here it is here. Very clearly says the same thing that Councilor Holbrook just said about pesticides. And it says that Scarborough recognizes that all citizens, particularly children, have a right to the protection from exposure to hazardous chemicals and pesticides, and it's the best interest of public health to eliminate the use of pesticides on town-owned lands, to encourage reduction and elimination of pesticide use on private property, and to introduce cultural and management practices to prevent and, when necessary, address pest problems on town-owned land. The IPM involves a decision-making process for managing pests that uses monitoring to determine the pest levels and combines biological, cultural, physical, chemical tools to minimize health, environmental, and financial risk. Also in the proposal, it very clearly says to anybody doing an RFP, the method uses the least toxic synthetic pesticides only as a last resort. And it says that the contractor has to identify the pest or disease, to monitor and scout each pest ecosystem, to set the injury levels, evaluate the site, consider a range of potential treatments for the pest problems, and consider the use of chemicals only as a last resort. Now, what is wrong with that? That is so clear. It's saying as a last resort, which is the very similar thing of the emergent. You can't wait until the problem is there. You need to be doing the testing so that you prevent the problem from happening. I have that grub problem. My whole front lawn gave out. And by the way, I attended Paul Tukey's lecture, and I learned a lot from Paul Tukey. And certainly organics are the way to go, and I have used one of the things he suggested. And we'll see how well that works. But, you know, we all do our homework. I think this integrated pest management policy, the other thing that it does for me, and Sue Foley Ferguson reminded me of I want to do the best for the most with the least. If you go full force at it and you make it mandatory that you're going to absolutely refrain from the use of any of these synthetics or pesticides, and you damage multiple fields, that's going to cost taxpayers dollars. And I have to be concerned about that. This year's budget is a concern, and last year's budget was a concern, and the next year's budget. Certainly costs are going to even out over time. And I think the other thing that I've learned from this reading and other readings that I've done is that you can't just go and do organic all of a sudden without doing the soil testing. You've got to make sure that the substrate is ready to react to the substrate. You don't know what's there. You don't know whether you've got a high phosphorus level, high magnesium levels, and what other components are there that you have to correct. Because until you correct the substrate, you're going to be wasting money using organic fertilization because you're just not going to get there. So it's going to be a learning curve for everybody, but I think, number one, I don't think that it shortchanges any citizen of this community in any way, shape, or form. It is absolutely calling for using the synthetics as a last resort, and I'm comfortable with that. So those are my reasons why I think that, I have to support Councilor Sullivan's proposal. I think, and the other reason certainly is that, Department of Agriculture, the Board of Pesticides Control, the University of Maine Cooperative Extension, and the Maine School for IPM program are all supporting this, and it's a sound program, and I think if we follow through with it, we're going to be successful. But we can't do it overnight, and I think somebody from the opposition said that. It's not going to happen overnight. I think Sue said that. It's going to take time, and I'm willing to give every effort to it. I'm doing it in my own home. I have 7 compost bins. I use compost in my gardens. I'm very savvy about what happens when you use chemicals and those kinds of things. And I think that this policy at least gives the town some breathing room to get the whole process going. And with the advisory committee's help, hopefully can build a nice matrix so that we can look at every field and we can look to see, what the soils are and go through all the steps that we need to take so that we thoroughly evaluate each field and do it properly and thoughtfully and in major consideration of safety for our residents. So that's what I have to say. Councilor Rancor.
Yeah, I want to say that the current policy does exactly the same thing as well. We had all of that in our policy. We made it very clear that this would be a 3-year plan, at least 3 to 5 years, and that it was not going to happen every place simultaneously. With regards to the other issues, those I don't think are properly discussed before the public, unless the counselor in question wishes us to do that tonight. I also want to say that aspersions have been cast on me, and I will grant those about this much house room, because I don't have a business, and I don't have I'm not related to any businesses. I don't have any consanguinity with any businesses, and those remarks were beneath my condescension. 2 other remarks I want to make. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the state of Maine considered DDT a safe pesticide. Look what that did to us. And secondly, I remember just not that long ago that the state of Maine said that an ash treatment plant in Scarborough was absolutely safe. And as we all know, the citizens of Scarborough, in their wisdom, said no. And the council had to reconsider that vote. So we are capable here in Scarborough, of having our own minds, of recognizing dangers where they really exist. And I think, unfortunately, the die is cast in this one, and I think Scarborough will suffer as a result.
Councilor Sullivan.
Since Councilor Raincourt brought up the ethics charges again, I'm just going to, the last 2 words on it is, I either want to see a full retraction of the letter and an apology, or I want to have a hearing. And I'm sure that once everything's on the table, I'll be vindicated, and whether it's going to be public or In executive session, I don't know yet. I'll have to consult with legal.
Thank you. Council Dean.
So let me just say this about chemicals. All right, the current Federal Chemical Act was written in 1978, I believe. Six. Under that policy, under that federal act, since then, over 80,000 chemicals have come into being. Because that act is so outdated, less than 200 of those chemicals have ever been even properly tested. And even less, only 5 of them have ever been banned. So even the worst of the worst chemicals are still sitting out there. And we know, we are beginning to see there is more and more and more medical evidence showing the connection between these chemicals and hazards to our health.
Council Rankin.
I'm not finished yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That's okay.
You stopped, and I thought you had.
No, I'm just took a pregnant pause.
Oh.
Um,
Trying to sell us?
So, one of the things that this old Chemical Act doesn't take into consideration for measuring the harmful effects of chemicals is that initially what they did was when they tested with lots of chemicals. But what they're finding now is that even the minute, and they're finding that it's the smallest amounts, the most minute amounts that are the most dangerous, that cause the most problems in humans. I'm not making this stuff up. You can actually go read the scientific data about it. So currently, today, in the federal government, in committee, they're working on the new Safe Chemicals Act, which brings the old act from 1976 more up to date, which would mean more of these chemicals get tested, and more, especially the most dangerous ones, will get looked at first and banned. So I also got to ask, if IPM is so great, why do grubs still decimate fields? I mean, I just got to ask that, okay? Grubs don't happen overnight. The real bonus part, and by the way, you can't do organics halfway. Just doesn't work. Just doesn't work. You can't do them halfway. You've got to clean up the soil. You've got to bring it back to health. But grubs don't take over whole fields in a matter of days. I know this now for a fact. I have grubs, and I'm so proud of my grubs in my front yard because they're feeding my moles. And it's really a fun, now that's a really fun relationship going on in my front yard, all right? So here's the deal. So moles come, crows come, and there's other little critters that feed on the grubs, all right? So I've been watching my spot in the yard because I've been waiting for it, because all I heard over that year we've been working on was this doom and gloom about how grubs were going to overtake the world. Well, my little like 5x6 spot hasn't grown. It just hasn't grown. I've been watching it for 2 or 3 weeks now, and it's the same size. So grubs don't overtake fields overnight. They just don't. I had a lovely conversation with the Ogunquit town manager, who was very angry because somebody from Scarborough had said that Ogunquit lets their fields just go to the grubs and then they just replace all the turf. Well, they don't. Guess what? They're really proud of their fields down there. So they take really good care of them. By the way, did I mention they're all organic? They love organics down there. It saves them money. Every single town that I spoke to that were discussed earlier, Ogunquit, Camden, I forget now. Thank you. We all heard them before. I spoke to all those towns. I spoke to town managers and facility managers. There was only one town whose costs had gone up, and that town had the same vendor we have. That was the only town whose costs that went up. Every other town's costs went down. And indeed, when we went through that year-long process, we looked at costs. I don't know about you guys, but when I want to get my house painted, I get an estimate from somebody. Sometimes 3, because I don't always trust the first guy, but we went out, we got an estimate. And guess what? It came in at about the same price as our current vendor. Actually, I think it was about $50 less. So even now, knowing that, it's still cost-effective to do organics. So we start out at about the same price, and it only goes down. We're worried about the budget, then this is the way to go. Again, the cost is just going to keep going down. So, the other thing that I have some real problems with is this organics, or this committee. Okay, because some of the other counselors talk a good game. They're all like, oh, this new policy is great. Basically the same as the current policy. Okay, so why not let the current policy work? But the problem is if they're so gung-ho about organics, why did they take the only 2 organic people off the committee? So how are you going to deal with that? What we want to do is we want to put the most knowledgeable people about that on the committee. It makes perfect sense. All right, I might come up with something a little more later, but I'll let Carol go.
I just wish to reply to Councilor Sullivan's remark. I will not be offering a retraction, so I hope you will be having your hearing. And in my letter, I was very clear that the items that are breached are in regard to relatives, blood relations, which are not in dispute. So I think my whole issue here as a counselor is that we have an ethical responsibility to our town. I did not do this to start a firestorm. I wanted to get this straightened out among us counselors. It has mushroomed into something much more through no part of mine. What we need to do is make sure we have an ethical responsibility and that we are meeting it to our constituency. And here is an area that I brought to the attention of my fellow counselors. I have an affirmative duty when I find something that we're not doing according to our rules to bring it to the fellow counselors. If I had whispered it, hey, did you know about this? I would not be doing my ethical duty. I would be fixing it behind closed doors without the public knowing anything at all. I didn't go into the details. I cited the items, and I said I didn't know if there was any financial favor received by that particular counselor. I don't know that. I didn't know it, and I never accused him of it. What I said was, there is a breach in our ethical requirements of notification, annual notification of a blood relation for anyone who gets more than $1,000 in some form of remuneration from the town of Scarborough. So I think that's with the magnitude of this and the hurt feelings are out of proportion with what the issue truly is. And if we can't find that we need to follow our own ethics, what do we have them for?
Council Chair.
Councilor Sullivan.
Okay, first of all, I consider what is going on here with the ethics is showboating, bringing it up during a debate about organics versus a change in policy. This could have been dealt with totally different. I was unaware of the policy as interpreting it that way, because I don't have any control over the bid system, period, or how it works. Give me my turn now. So, I mean, this could have been handled a totally different way than it was handled. And I just consider it showboating and playing to the audience. And that's exactly what it is. And I believe the public will see that. And I believe that when I get my hearing and everything comes out, I believe, like I said, again and again, I'll be vindicated. On one of the things that Council DeAndrea said, there's plenty of things that have been said to do with pesticides, that the main thing in the policy, it says we're going to use the least harmful. So to talk about all these other chemicals that have been banned and going to be banned, I think that's apples and oranges. And because we're going to be responsible in this policy to use the least harmful when needed. The surveys were sent out, and I have it right in here in hand from a Gunkwit. It was filled out by Stephen Shepard. Filled out, and it says that they had no program, no organic program, just stop spraying herbicides and pesticides. How many athletic, no, that's not important, that's not important. What do you do about grubs in the fields? Do not spray, do mechanically. That sounds to me expensive. What do you do about white grubs? We have problems, but do not spray. They replace grass. Right there, replace grass. And it's done by, it's contracted, and they do not fertilize, period. It's right here in writing, and once again, it was made out by Stephen Shepard, so you can talk to him about it. I'm done.
Vote. Council Holbrook, Council Benedict, Council Dan.
Yes, thank you. I have that same handout that we got from Community Services. I understand, I read an email from Councilor Sullivan who said he didn't have time to follow up on making calls on this information. I did. And so I called the town manager in Algonquin, and what we didn't hear Councilor Sullivan say was they wait for pests to destroy fields and plants and then replace them. Again, I talked to the town, I have no idea who Community Services talked to. I talked to the town manager. The town manager was angry that somebody would have written that about their fields. They take great pride in, because what he said was the biggest asset for them is their beach and their marginal way, and they want to protect that. So, I mean, I have all the names of all the people who I spoke to and what they said. And much of what they said was very different than was written here. I understand that this was a community services employee. I'm not trying to badmouth that person, but I was told that he spoke to his contemporaries. Well, his contemporaries may not have been the town manager or the facilities manager who I did speak to and had the actual information. So I think that there was some errors within this. I did follow up and make those calls. So I just want to be very clear about that. And also, I did not get any of my questions answered. I want to know why this is being brought up so late in the game. Why was this not addressed in September, August, October, November, December, January, or February? And what is, and I still am not clear about what's the argument to change the policy? Where's the argument here? Why is the organic policy so bad that we have to revert back to IPM, which is what we were doing before? Simple question.
No, we weren't doing that before, because you spoke to a grub problem. After talking to Community Services, they haven't been putting down pesticides for grubs, a preventative plan. They've done no prevention, and that's why we have a problem. They realize that. There was no integrated pest management program. There was no, they fertilized and they sprayed for weeds once in a while. I have a right, with a new sitting council, to bring forward a policy that I think makes common sense. It's up to this council to say yes or no, whether it makes common sense. It's a new sitting council. If it wasn't, then I couldn't do it. It's plain and simple as that. I don't agree with the policy. There was plenty of people that are in the turf management field that came and spoke at these meetings and were told that none of it showed up in the policy. It was all organic. No compromise whatsoever. The only compromise I heard was, let's make it a policy, not an ordinance. Okay? When you do that, when you don't try to make a compromise on stuff like this happens. And that's why I brought it forward.
Go ahead, Karen.
And I'm thinking it's time to vote on. We talked this thing to death.
That was just my humbly request
You could
that
be
we
here till
just
midnight.
vote at this point.
I mean, this
there's
is
a
why
procedure
public
for it.
process is so important. And it's been completely sidestepped here. Completely sidestepped. By having a vote on this in just one meeting. It's ludicrous. I'm not even sure that as a town councilor, I should vote on something that I think is in violation of our policy rules. And I don't think any of us should be voting on something that is potentially in violation of our policy rules. It does not make sense, and I will not be rushed to be voted on. I have the right, just like everybody else here, to be heard. And I think it's crazy. These citizens who elected me and elected us have asked for this policy overwhelmingly, and there are members of this council who are ignoring them. The landscapers had their say, the organics people had their say. As I said, you can't do both. You have to go one way or the other. We decided on the organics. I'm sorry, guys.
I would remind all the counselors that with the first policy that Councilor Sullivan worked with the town manager, there were issues, and we backed off from voting on it, and we were supposed to meet with the group of people who are in your camp. And the meeting did not happen because it was canceled. And there was a great opportunity. We were willing to sit down and work together on it, and it didn't happen. So
I
what
think that there are
happened
people
there?
out there that did not know about that meeting. That was not a public meeting. There was no public meeting set aside.
I didn't say public meeting. There
There were no workshops. We went through a year of process, and it wasn't even implemented, which the town manager was directed to do in that policy. Perhaps another violation of our rules. The town manager is directed by the council to implement a policy and does not do so. We've got problems here, and none of them are being addressed. We sat on this policy for 6 months, and not one person had a complaint about it. All of a sudden, boom, one day, there's a new policy. We get to vote on it once. There's no time for public process. There's no workshops. There's no explanations. All we now hear tonight is, it's a new common sense approach. we still don't even know if it violates our rules, but yet, we're gonna vote on it? Baloney. I'm not gonna vote. It reeks of horse pucks.
Okay, that's quite enough superlatives, certainly, at this point in time. We've been asked to move the question, so I'm going to move the question. All those in favor?
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna
Opposed?
vote on something that's illegal.
Opposed? Abstentions? 3 abstentions.
Believe it, folks, that's your town council working hard for you.
Councilor DeAndrea, those comments are not necessary.
Out of order.
If we're talking
Out of
about
order.
ethics, you better look up the term.
Exactly.
Well, Counselor Sullivan, you're just adding right to it down there.
Out of
You're
order.
You're out of order,
of
Councilor
order.
DeAndrea. You are out of order.
You're all out of order.
Jeez.
Okay, what's the next one, honey? We got one more. We have the
Okay.
order for the committee.
Order number 12-47, act on the names posted
Oh,
to the
that's a
various
good thing.
committees and boards as recommended by the Appointments Committee at the Town Council meeting of April 4.
Council Holbrook.
I'm just citing the time and that there's no new business at 10, if we could perhaps take this up at the next meeting. I need my allergy meds, I'm sorry.
It's okay. My thought was that, you perhaps need to look at it at Appointments Committee and determine what you want to do with the committee. I'd recommend leaving the citizenry ones on there. We'll have to,
I got a whole bucket.
the sooner the better, because if we don't,
I'm going to meet prior to the next council
so
meeting.
can you want to table it till the next
I
council meeting?
move to table it to the next council meeting.
Okay, there's a motion to table that last order till the next council meeting. Is there a second?
Can I vote now?
Mhm.
Okay. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you, Councilor Rankin. There are no non-action items. Standing committees and special committee reports, liaison reports. Councilor Rankin?
Yeah, the library committee will be meeting tomorrow night. The ordinance committee, I believe, Tom, is meeting next Tuesday. Or are we doing it the week after?
No, it's next Tuesday.
It is next Tuesday at 4:30 here in Town Council Chambers. The Senior WOW Committee is meeting next Tuesday also at 8:15 here in Chambers A.
24th, Carol.
The 24th, that's correct.
Yeah, I'll try, if I can remember it then. Councilor Benedict, any standing committee liaison reports?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Councilor Holbrook?
No, not at this time.
Councilor Sullivan?
None.
Okay, I'll just report that a long-range planning committee meeting is meeting at 8 o'clock on Friday. We'll be still working on some of Haggis Parkway and a few other projects that they're looking at with long-range planning. And then we have our final Finance Committee meeting, where the Finance Committee will draw together the recommendations for the full council consideration. There will be a workshop next Wednesday evening, the 25th at 7 for the town council. And the school board will also be there, I believe, to open it up so that any councilors who have not been actively involved in the Finance Committee have an opportunity to ask the questions of the budget for clarification and to offer their suggestions for adjustments in any of the budget areas that you'd like to. Energy Committee meeting is on the 26th next week at 7:30 in the morning, and I believe that's it for my committees. Town managers report.
I'll just be brief. I'll just speak to one issue. I was advised late this afternoon that the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Department will be doing a controlled burn on property in the wildlife management area adjacent to the marsh. This is off Nansen Libby Road. It will occur tomorrow, between 8 and 10 acres. It's not the ideal conditions, they assure me. They have staff from Maine Fire Service, Maine National Guard there to assist. So I just want to advise, certainly our fire department is made aware, but to the extent that you see smoke rising on the horizon from that vicinity, that's why. Thank you.
Council comments beyond what we've already done.
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah, Councilor Hankel.
And Judy, you may be able to correct me, but we have had at least several deaths of Scarborough residents in the
list
recently, and I want to specifically mention Len Libby, longtime Scarborough resident in my neighborhood, died at 84. He leaves his wife Lorraine and his kids Lisa and, oh gosh, isn't that awful? I'm forgetting her name. His oldest daughter, and grandchildren as well. And I also want to mention that, I know there are others, but I want to mention that Gladys Hall, teacher at Dunstan for many, many years, and a longtime Scarborough resident, David Hall, Jean Hall, and she had another son too, whose name is escaping me right now, also has passed away. I also want to take on a little more infamy here by stating that there have been stories written in the local papers. I want to say that no local paper has contacted me. I have not spoken to anyone, so I've not had a chance to even comment on what was going on or what my reasons were. But in one of the articles I read today, there was an allegation by a member of council that I perhaps have a conflict of interest. And I just wanted to share with my fellow councilors the information that I am not a manager or a supervisor at Southern Maine Agency on Aging. And although Southern Maine Agency on Aging does receive a donation from the town of Scarborough for services to the elderly of Scarborough, not to me, but to the elderly of Scarborough, out of its graciousness, and it has done so for several years. I have with me the organizational chart of Southern Maine Agency on Aging and my business card, one for each of you, that will demonstrate to you that I do not hold any position of power at Southern Maine Agency on Aging. I gave that up 31 years ago when I adopted my daughter.
That it?
That's it for me.
Councilor Benedict? Any comments? Councilor Holbrook?
I think there's been enough comments this evening.
Councilor Sullivan?
I'm all commented out, but I would like to send my condolences to the Libby family. I guess the last time I saw Len he was a ball of fire at the Zoning Board of Appeals over the new proposed elderly care facility. And he spoke out very strongly and very loudly. He'll be missed.
Leslie.
Yeah, and I think, too, he was on duty that morning doing some traffic for the fire. And so, he also, I think, important for people to know, was a founding member of the Scarborough Rescue Squad with Dr. Haggis. And he was an EMT on our rescue for 22 years, and a 59-year member of the Lions Club, responsible for purchasing, helping to raise money to purchase thermal imaging, at least 2, emergency vehicles, and he received the highest award of the Lionism, the Melvin Jones Award. So he did many good things for his church as well. He was very active there. And you had mentioned Gladys Hall, and she was also a member of the Historic Society. And then there's a Shirley Townsend Scammon, wife of James Scammon, Georgiana Griffin Cohen, Priscilla Tozier Briggs, and Richard Boisvert. Those are all citizens of Scarborough that have passed away over the last couple of weeks. Other comments, really none in
Judy, I just want to say I
particular.
remembered the other daughter is Leslie.
Oh, okay. Other than, I have difficulty with my integrity being attacked, and the comments, and hopefully I wasn't too harsh in my comments. I do consider all of the residents of this community, from the little babes to the elders, and I have to do that because that's what I'm elected to do. And I take it seriously, and I work hard at it, and anybody who wants to sit out there and belittle it, put your name out, get your papers ready, and run, and see what kind of work, hard work it is. It's not an easy position. It's a difficult position to make many decisions, and I do it with great care most often. So with that, a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, and thank you all for your attendance tonight.
21.